Pay attention. The ferry leaves at 10 a.m. Roads are busy.
Great.
Dad, pack the boot. Suitcases, Tetris style.
Yeah.
Rosie, got your teddy?
Uh-huh.
No going back this time. Honey, how's the car?
Windows clean, car wax, carpets.
I meant the tyres.
Oh, sorted him at Quick Fit last week.
Brilliant. If things go to plan, it'll be smooth sailing.
Planning the perfect getaway this summer? Make sure your tyres are up for the job. Book today at quickfit.com or your local centre. Quick Fit. Drive away happy every time.
Morrison's Morecard customers. Play our Wheel of Prizes game in the Morecard app today. Spend just £10 in-store or online to unlock a spin. Win big prizes like a year's free shopping worth a whopping £3,000. To free goodies like our classic Market Street donuts. Play now on the Morecard app.
Morrison's to shop at Morrison's.
Morecard app required 18 plus. Excludes Morrison's Daily, Deliveroo and Amazon. T's and C's apply. See online for details. End 24th of August.
You can't do much in under 5 minutes. Boil an egg? Sure. Cook a roast dinner? No chance. But comparing car insurance prices with mustard.co.uk? Easy. See what you could save in just a few minutes. Click mustard.co.uk. Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. See website for details.
What's on TV? The answer is a lot. There's never been more choice over what to put on the box with an abundance of great new shows, but you can miss them all if you don't know where to look. And that's where the Pilot TV podcast comes in, your essential guide to every show that matters. Each week we sift through the very best in prestige TV to help you decide what's worth spending your time on and what isn't. So join me, James Dyer, as well as venerable TV critics Boyd Hilton and Kay Ribeiro, and let us help take the stress out of your downtime. The Pilot TV podcast, because you can't watch everything.
0141 951 1025. It's time to talk football. It's Clyde 1 Super Scoreboard.
Hello and welcome to Super Scoreboard Sunday, a brand new permanent time slot for Clyde 1 Super Scoreboard every Sunday from 4 until 7. We'll be here with the first comprehensive review of the weekend's action where you can have your say. We'll dive into the biggest talking points, and there's going to be no lack of talking points today because the scheduling means we have Celtic taking on St Mirren in Flag Day in just half an hour. Reaction as Russell Martin hits out at Eagle and self-preservation amongst his Rangers players after dropping points at Motherwell. Kelly and Livy drew yesterday, as did Falkirk and Dundee United today. It's half-time between Hibs and Dundee, with Hibs having a lead there, and as I say, not long until kick-off at Celtic Park. I'm Andrew Maclean. Joining me in the studio today is Marvin Bartley and Hugh Keevins.
What a day to start the new programme, Andrew, because we are in the midst of a quite remarkable 72 hours. On Friday, Brendan Rodgers highly critical of the people who employ him at Celtic Park, and his words, for me, were the equivalent of Brendan Rodgers handing in his notice. This will be his last season. I think he's had enough. And then, when Rangers should have been taking advantage of the Celtic situation, the controversy, the uncertainty, Rangers then go and make a mess of it against Motherwell at Fir Park, and Russell Martin has a meltdown. Was that advisable? I'm not sure it was. And now today, the emphasis switches back to Celtic because there's a 3-course deal on the menu here. Celtic could go 2 points in front of Rangers if they beat St Mirren. Celtic could join Rangers on 1 point if they draw with St Mirren. Or Celtic could go 1 point behind Rangers by losing to St Mirren. And incidentally, Yang's playing.
And I cannot wait to see him flying down that wing today. I think it's a massive, massive day for not only Yang but myself sitting next to Hugh Keevins, because if he doesn't have a good performance, I'm never going to hear the end of it. If he does have a good performance, he won't hear the end of it. But I'm very honoured to be here on Sunday, not only sitting next to you, Hugh, but this is the first ever Sunday show for Super Scoreboard, so we'll be remembered forever.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Lots to get into, and we don't want to hang about with phone calls. Every Sunday we want to take your calls straight away. 4 until 7, 3 hours of reaction. So give us a call now, 0141 951 1025. Maybe you're a Celtic fan that's building up to Flag Day, that game against St Mirren. What are you thinking ahead of that? Maybe you are a Rangers fan and have some opinions about that game yesterday evening. I've seen a lot on social media, especially after Russell Martin's comments that we'll hear as well in a short period of time. We're going to go to Celtic Park as well to hear from Gabriel, get the teams ahead of that game, and we're going to look back on the rest of the weekend's action. 0141 951 1025. Get your calls in right now, and we'll go to Celtic Park now to get teams and a bit of build-up from Gabriel.
Yes, Andrew, good afternoon from the home of the champions. It's lovely weather here in the East End on Flag Day, and it is time to do it all over again. Celtic have won 4 in a row, 13 of the last 14 league titles, and they're looking to continue their control of Scottish football. Rangers, as we all know, have already left the door ajar for the Hoops to take a lead in the title race. But Brendan Rodgers doesn't simply want to maintain their dominance. He wants to progress to the next level, and that has been the main gripe of supporters here around me across the summer. The 6 signings have come in, of course, spearheaded by the return of favourite son Kieran Tierney. But only £3 million has been spent so far. Nicholas Turner's gone for big bucks to Italy. Jota remains sidelined with an ACL injury, and there's still a lingering feeling that Diogo has not truly been replaced. Rodgers claims he's lacking firepower up top and is urging the board to make more instant impact signings as soon as possible. But nonetheless, this team are still the ones to beat. The starting 11 remains very impressive. There are 2 new signings in that starting team. Tierney is back, and expect him to get a rapturous welcome when he comes out. Swedish international Benjamin Nygren is in from the beginning as well. Interestingly, he is playing as one of the midfielders, Andrew. He had been doing that in pre-season as well, but his inclusion means there's no place in the team for record signing Arne Engels. The Belgian is amongst the substitutes, and as Hugh said, Yang is the one chosen on the right wing. The team is as follows: Kasper Schmeichel in goal. A defensive Alistair Johnson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Liam Scales and Kieran Tierney. Captain Callum McGregor is at the base of midfield with Benjamin Nygren and Real Hatate either side. Yang and Dyson Maeda are on the wings. Adam Eder plays through the middle. The substitutes: Sinisalo, Ralston, Trusty, McCowan, Engels, Bernardo, Forrest, Shin and Kenny. But it's not all about the champions today. St Mirren arrive here now firmly a top 6 side. Stephen Robinson is tasking his men with finishing in the top half once more for a 4th time in a row. We were speaking to him on Thursday. He feels his squad have improved. They've had a decent enough League Cup group stage, winning their group. They've fared well against big sides recently over the last couple of years. And don't forget, the Buddies nearly won here on the final day of last season, if it wasn't for that last gasp James Forrest equaliser. Their team is as follows, Andrew. It's still that 3 at the back formation, with Shamal George in goal. Marcus Fraser, Alex Gogic and Richard King are the 3. Jayden Richardson, Killian Phillips, Fraser Taylor, Mark O'Hara and Declan John play across the middle, with Roland Adu and Mikel Mandron up top. Substitutes: Mullen, Freckleton, Sobawale, Smith, McMenamin, Dykesteele, Calvin, Ayunga and Mooney. The referee will be Don Robertson. The bar, Greg Aitken. The place is starting to pack out. Usual carnival atmosphere here on opening weekend, and it will be all-time legend Paul McStay who will unfurl the league flag just before kick-off at 4:30.
Well, Celtic fans, what do you make of that lineup? We will be here across the whole game as well, so maybe you're sitting at home and going to watch it and you want to chat to us while it's on. 0141 951 1025. The 2 of you touched on it. Hugh, Yang in the starting lineup. Is that something that, if you get to the end of last season, that you think most Celtic fans, pretty much every Celtic fan, would have been surprised if he was essentially one of the first choice wingers at this point in the season?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yang was part of the cup final losing team. He finished the match and did nothing. Celtic have brought in £25 million since January with the sale of Kyogo and Nicholas Kuhn, and they're still going with Yang as a first choice because Brendan Rodgers has no other alternative. The recruitment policy has gone wrong, and that's what the manager pointed out on Friday. The most glaring area of the side that is in need of refurbishment is up front. Dyson Maeda today, last season's player of the year, outstanding player for Celtic, no problem. He's joined by Ida, who, although he got 20 goals last season, never mind me, he hasn't convinced the Celtic supporters that he's the real deal either. And Yang, I'm afraid, comes into the category of hit and miss.
Interested in Benjamin Nygren's inclusion because he, in pre-season, has been playing in that midfield 3. it was always going to be interesting to see whether he was going to start there, who he would start alongside if he was. Arne Engels is the one that is on the bench. Gabs mentioned it, £11 million spent on him last summer. Looking forward to seeing how that plays out across the season, because that's a lot of money to spend on someone that may not potentially be first choice now for the new season.
Yeah, but regardless of your price tag, you have to be, at it, especially when you're playing for Celtic Football Club. So clearly Brendan Rodgers is picking the boys who've came through pre-season the best, who thinks he gives them the best chance of winning this game. And whether Engels cost £11 million or £1 million, he has to hit a certain level to make sure he's in that midfield starting three. Unfortunately for him, but fortunately for the three who are starting, he's behind them at this moment in time. And listen, players, it's going to happen in his career. It's all about reactions now. So whether he gets on today or whether he starts the next game or comes on in the next game, he has to show Brendan Rodgers that he's wrong. And that's the exact reaction that Brendan Rodgers will want. There's no time to sulk when you're playing for Celtic.
Likewise, Paulo Bernardo. A lot was expected of Paulo Bernardo, but he has flattered to deceive. And he'll have to wait in line for a place in the team. I haven't seen Nygren in the flesh. Looking
because
forward
it might
to
also not be a negative reflection necessarily on the likes of Engels and Bernardo. It may well be that Benjamin Nygren has come in and actually been a surprise package for Brendan Rodgers and is much better than maybe he thought he was going to be, or just is better than his price tag suggests.
It's the one area of the team where Celtic are rich and in terms of choice. But I go back to it, the front three is reflective of a recruitment policy that is not good enough, and Brendan Rodgers is fed up with it.
Well, Celtic fans, St Mirren fans, let us know what you think building up to that game or during the game as well. We want to hear from you. 0141 951 1025. We're going to speak to Adam, who's a Rangers fan in Finniston, but before that, let's hear a bit from Russell Martin, shall we? Because a lot has been made of Rangers' performance against Motherwell yesterday, of course dropping points on their opening Premiership game of the season. Russell Martin came out and didn't mince his words at all, did he, in his post-match press conference. He talked about ego of some players, that they need to drop that. He talked about self-preservation. This is what he had to say after the game.
I'm very disappointed and a bit hurt and a bit angry at a lot of stuff I saw. So Motherwell were really good, credit to them. But I said to the players in there, it's not like the problems haven't been tactical yet, really. They've been mentality, about energy, about courage, intensity, aggression to play. That we haven't started games well enough in the first half in the 2 European games, and then showed a bit more willingness to trust the detail in each other and work. And then today we go ahead and we're playing some okay stuff. Every time we get in the final third, we turn the ball over and lose and make crazy decisions. They're either selfish decisions or they're based on anxiety. So we need to get to the bottom of that, because there was far too much like stuff that we haven't worked on or haven't seen. So when we do what we worked on and we don't come through, then that's on us as a coaching staff and a group. But when the problems are, and I've said it to the players, it's no different to what I've said to you. It's not me digging them out and trying to. I take full responsibility for it, but that hurts me more than anything. The problem should be tactical. There shouldn't be mentality. So we have too many guys that slip into self-preservation mode, and I think it's been a factor of this club for the last few years for sure. So when it's going well, you're all in. You want to run. You want the ball is nice, but when it's not going well, don't want to run so much. You pick and choose when you want to run. You pick and choose when you want to compete and mark your player from a throw-in or a corner. You pick and choose when to run back, and it's unacceptable for this football club. And for us, the coaching staff, it's just not acceptable. So loads of teething problems, the same, like in terms of tactically that previous clubs have been at and all that stuff. There's always going to be, we're 6 weeks in, so there will be issues. But the issue today is purely is mentality. So too much ego, too much self-preservation, and you're either all in all the time or you're not. And if you're not, you just won't play very much.
Yeah, a very honest assessment there from Russell Martin. Is he too honest there? Can you understand why he's come out and said those things?
Well, he starts off by saying it's not me digging them out, and then he digs them out big time. Journalistically speaking, lovely. Great for the guys in my profession. Great for Super Scoreboard. But I'm not sure, Marvin, it's wise to go into meltdown mode after one game. It comes across, for me, as, listen, it's got nothing to do with me, it's them.
Listen, I'm probably on Russell Martin's side in terms of the way he's gone about this, because how long do you wait? Do you wait 5 or 10 games and you start to say these things? If he's noticing it from the start, he's letting the players know that also. And as professional footballers, when you hear your manager speak about this, in the words that he's used there, and you fall into that category, you have to do something about it. You know, if you're sitting in that dressing room thinking that's not about me, then obviously you're doing your job to the best of your ability. But the things he's talking about, Hugh, are, you know, people running hard and mentality and egos and all these sorts of things. That's been labelled at this Rangers squad before. Yeah. So, you know, I don't think it's a meltdown for me. I think it's a manager being very, very honest. And I know we live in a society now where people want to jump on every single word that's said and said, oh, he's doing this, he's throwing the players under the bus. Me personally, if I was a professional footballer within that dressing room and I fell into the category of the players he's speaking about there, I will do something about it. And if those players don't do something about it, as he said, they're not right for the football club. So I don't disagree with him at all. There's no point in, you know, mincing your words with them. This is the way it's going to be done. If you don't want to do it, as Clement tried to do before, then get out. So many press conferences we heard post-match from Clement that he was, you know, protecting the players and saying the wrong things, and people coming out and saying, this guy's watching a different game to us. I don't think there's any Rangers fan out there that would disagree with what Russell Martin is saying. Some might say he shouldn't have said it and he's throwing the players under the bus. Some will agree with him. But in fact, the words that he's saying and the words he's using there, I think you saw in that performance against Motherwell yesterday.
Well, let's get the view of Adam, who's a Rangers fan in Finnieston. Remember, on this new format, we'll be taking your calls all the way through from 4 o'clock until 7 o'clock. Adam, what did you make of yesterday's performance?
Well, hello to all the guys. Yeah, me and my mate watched it and we just thought Rangers were just insipid, devoid of ideas, no imagination. The Motherwell keeper looked dodgy. Bartley looked dodgy. I just think it's... I made a prediction. It's like in the first 3 Rangers games, I was saying a draw, a victory and a defeat. So I think they'll beat Dundee and I think they'll get beat by St Mirren. And then that's coming into the game against Celtic. So potentially, at the end of the month, they could be 8 points behind Celtic after 4 games. I mean, they're going to sign Ant-Man. I mean, maybe they should go for Ryan Kent's brother Clark, because it'll take 2 superheroes to win the league this season.
Well, you know, he was honest enough to admit that Rangers got a point they didn't deserve yesterday. And he's lucky, Russell Martin, because Panathinaikos should have beaten them at Ibrox, should have beaten them in Athens, but when they got in front of goal, they couldn't kick their own backside. So he's fortunate, because Motherwell should have beaten Rangers yesterday, but for their awful finishing. So he has problems, and only the players, as Marvin says, can get him out of those situations. But we're very interested to see the team on Tuesday, Marvin, to see if that is reflective of what he was talking about yesterday.
Yeah. And that's kind of the next point to it, Hugh. You know, do you now make the changes straight away? Does he see reaction from these players? Because these reactions can come in training as well, not only in matches. So I totally agree. You know, coming into Tuesday's game, it'll be very, very interesting, because some of the players he substituted yesterday, you wouldn't normally expect to leave the pitch for Rangers. Yeah. So, yeah, he's going to have to find the right balance with that as well.
Is it hard also to strike the balance as someone on the outside looking in of exactly where the issues are? Because if Russell Martin's coming out post-match and he's saying that it's not tactical, it's mentality, and players aren't doing their jobs, and some players need to drop their ego and they're going into self-preservation mode. But is it also hard to see exactly what the tactics and the style is meant to look like if the players aren't doing their job, and you can't really work out whether it will work or not?
I mean, I think, you know, if you look at the way Russell Martin's teams have played in the past and what Rangers were trying to do yesterday, they were trying to build through the thirds, and on so many occasions they were playing from Butland to a centre-half to the full-back, and it was breaking down from there. So, you know, clearly, you know, the midfield players aren't dropping into areas they should be dropping into. The players on the ball aren't making the right decisions. You know, players maybe at the top end aren't running them behind when they should be doing these things. So I think you can see what they were trying to do. But the fact it kept on breaking down and they didn't have kind of a plan B to it. And Russell Martin was probably thinking, no disrespect, we're playing against Motherwell. You know, we shouldn't have to have a plan B. If you players do exactly what you're out there to do, we shouldn't have a problem at all. But he's also speaking about players, you know, not running hard enough, not running back, not marking on throw-ons. You know, those sorts of things, you can't afford to do that as a professional footballer, let alone you're playing for a football club who are trying to challenge and wrestle the title back from Celtic, who have been so dominant domestically.
I think Adam will be one of those Rangers fans who's immediately disappointed, because Rangers' problem last season was not games against Celtic. On occasion, Rangers were better than Celtic in the Old Firm games, but it was the inability to stop dropping daft points elsewhere that cost Rangers. And straight away, game 1, they've done it again.
Adam, do you have faith that it will click and it will start to work if Russell Martin gets in more of his own players and he manages to maybe weed out the players that he doesn't feel are working to his system or maybe working as hard as he wants to, or do you have deeper concerns than that?
He was refreshing, brutally honest, but he never mentioned Wednesday. Obviously that made me a bit draining in Athens, but anyway, even still there was just nothing. You couldn't see anything. Like, how many shots did Rangers have at goal in the second half? I don't know, was it 3? Maybe. You've seen the Motherwell keeper, he was having a nightmare. Never even any shots at goal. It's just like, it just seems really poor. So, I don't know, obviously Victoria Pilsen on Tuesday. I mean, the games against Panathinaikos, on a better day, that could have been 3 goals for, 12 against, if they had actually hit the net.
It's certainly, he's under pressure, Adam, on Tuesday. And I know we're always accused of being knee-jerk capital of the world and all the rest of it, but he's the manager of Rangers. He started off by dropping 2 points, which Adam and other Rangers supporters will think that shouldn't have happened. And now straight away he has to do something against Victoria Pilsen, which makes sure that Rangers go to the return leg in a confident, optimistic frame of mind.
Adam's talking about Rangers not creating enough chances, not being either clinical, creative enough in the final third, but also issues at the other end of the pitch where Motherwell, and credit to Motherwell by the way, I thought Motherwell were very impressive. Jens Bertalascu was really happy with how they played. They obviously are instilling their own new style and they'll get a lot of plaudits. We'll get on to Motherwell, but Rangers at the other end of the park had their issues as well. They were exposed in the middle of the park as well. It wasn't just, the concerns for Russell Martin won't just be in one area of the park, will they? No, they'll be in all areas of the park, because at the end of the day they've gone and drawn a game that they shouldn't have drawn. And you said about in the final third, decision making in the final third was poor. People making the wrong decisions. Clearly they've worked on things in training, and it goes on to the pitch, and people are shooting when they shouldn't be shooting. They're playing passes they shouldn't be playing. But like you said, defensively at times they did look shaky as well. But there's always going to be, if you're expansive on the ball, it's about your reaction, how quickly you can get in from being on the ball to then into a defensive position. And now what you were speaking about there, the players weren't running hard enough, or some of them weren't. That means in transition the gaps are still there, and Motherwell were exploiting them. As you said, Motherwell were really, really good on the counter-attack. They're really happy with the way that they performed. But just sticking to Rangers at this moment in time, that bit there, if you're not going to run hard, it's all right having the ball, as he said there, and when it's going well, players look easy on the eye. But it's the other side of it. It's the ugly side of the game that people always speak about. They're the hard yards, and that's a mentality thing, like you said, because those Rangers players should be able to run all day, whether they played midweek or not. They should be able to play on Saturday, play 90 minutes, and be able to run on that football pitch. And some of them just weren't doing that.
Yeah, well, he said he was very, very proud of his players in Athens, and he's gone from very proud to very disillusioned in 3 days. So I go back to Tuesday night, Victoria Pilsen. The Rangers fans are looking now, and they're scrutinising the manager. Yeah, who do you expect to come out of that team, Adam? Because Russell Martin said after the game that there will be changes. He obviously criticised some of the players, didn't name any of the players that he was criticising. Is there anyone you would fully expect not to be involved or not to be starting that game on Tuesday?
Well, I think it's maybe IDS, Irritable Bowel Syndrome. And I would put Dessers on for the start. And I would take Dowell off. What about Mikey Moore? Is he eligible to play? Would they put him on?
Yeah, we need to wait and see on Mikey Moore. I think it's the international clearance. But see on Kieran Dowell. Kieran Dowell lasted the 90 minutes. He wasn't one of the players that was taken off. Would you imagine that? Does that show that he's maybe one of the players that is doing the running and is doing the work for Russell Martin if he's continually getting picked and being kept on the park?
Yeah, I think he's a player that Russell Martin trusts at this moment in time. And listen, I think we all know, by any stretch of the imagination, he's not a right winger. He's not someone that I imagine playing wide for Rangers come the end of this transfer window. But when the manager's talking about players not running, and he makes the substitutions that he's made, Andrew, as you said there, and Dow isn't one of them. I expect him to start again, because it's about being able to rely on players at this moment in time. Maybe move him into centre midfield because he wasn't happy with one of the three in there. But I expect Dow to start. But the manager said that there will be changes, which is always a risky thing for me. Straight after a game saying these things, emotions are high. It's disappointing that they've dropped 2 points. But, now looking like Hugh said, the fans on Tuesday, if he doesn't make any changes, then again, the questions we point at Russell Martin, if the performance is as poor as it was yesterday.
Well, thank you to Adam. Rangers fans, anything to add to that? 01419511025. Want to hear from you Motherwell fans as well. How impressed were you with that draw yesterday? Celtic fans, we are not long until kick-off, about 5 minutes to go. We'll go back to Celtic Park, but if you want to let us know what you're thinking of the game as it goes along, the same as you St Mirren fans, 01419511025. We'll get in touch next.
I'm Professor Huggington, and I like to hug.
When your kid's favourite toy starts to run out of battery power, no need to worry. Your new batteries are already on their way, arriving today with Prime. Everyday essentials delivered fast. It's on Prime.
I'm Professor Huggington, and I like to hug.
Cut-off times and T's and C's apply. See product page when ordering.
Pay attention. The ferry leaves at 10 a.m. Roads are busy.
Great.
Dad, pack the boot. Suitcases, Tetris style.
Yeah.
Rosie, got your teddy?
Uh-huh.
No going back this time. Honey, how's the car?
Windows clean, car wax, carpets back.
I meant the tyres.
Oh, sorted them at Quick Fit last week.
Brilliant. If things go to plan, it'll be smooth sailing.
Planning the perfect getaway this summer? Make sure your tyres are up for the job. Book today at quickfit.com or your local centre. Quick Fit. Drive away happy every time.
Oh, Jamie's got a new car. He only passed his test last week. Chloe and the kids on the school run in their new hybrid, and the Flemings from 23 off to see their daughter at uni. Get car and van insurance that's right up your street at parkerscompare.com. Created by the experts at Parkers, we're 100% independent and dedicated to helping you find the right insurance policy. Quick and easy, you could compare quotes in just 5 minutes from some of the UK's leading providers. For car insurance comparisons you can trust, visit parkerscompare.com. Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. See website for details.
Scotch beef, Scotch lamb and specially selected pork. The meat only ever born and reared in Scotland. Quality assured meat that's made for barbecues in the rain, posh plates and Fiona's famous Sunday roast. Yes. Here's to setting the standard, knowing where your meat comes from and making a good meal great. So ask yourself, why would you choose anything else? Scotch. When you know, you know. Get in the know at makeitscotch.com.
Number one for football in Glasgow and the West. 0141 951 1025. Clyde 1 Super Scoreboard.
Marvin, Bartley and Hugh Keevins here with me, Andrew Maclean, on new permanent Sunday Super Scoreboard slot 4 until 7. We will take your calls throughout the evening on the weekend's action, and of course Celtic taking on St Mirren. It is closing in on kick-off. Let's go back to Celtic Park and get all the build up with Gabriel Antoniazzi.
Yes, Andrew, listen to this. That is club legend Paul McStay, who has just unfurled the league flag. Celtic Football Club champions 2024-2025. Of course, the maestro, an ultimate one-club man who spent his whole career here, often in tough times, and never wavered. Won 3 league titles and the eternal love of all the supporters here. And that's a task for Callum McGregor, the current captain, and all of the players. Can they do it again? Will they be doing this again in 12 months' time? A sea of green and white around me, Andrew, and an emotional "You'll Never Walk Alone" just was ringing out around the stand. Dedicated to John Fallon and John Clark, 2 Lisbon Lions, who sadly passed away over the summer. Just to the right of me, a huge tifo with the face of Lisbon Lion, John Clark. A very, very emotional day, both good and bad here at Celtic Park. But we know what this means. Flag Day, 10 months of drama, pain and glory. How it will end, no one knows, but it all starts here. The task for Brendan Rodgers' men is to do it all over again, defend their crown, push for both domestic cups and continue to grow in Europe. Is this the year that they overtake Rangers and win a 56th league title? That's the hope of every single person inside this stadium, except of course those wearing black on the pitch. St Mirren are once again trying to spoil the party, as they so nearly did on the final day of last season. Stephen Robinson wants his men to defy the odds once more. and reach the top 6 again. Let's go through the teams as the captains shake hands. It's Kasper Schmeichel in goal. A defence for Celtic of Alistair Johnston, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Liam Scales and Kieran Tierney. Callum McGregor has Benjamin Nygren and Reo Hatate either side of him in midfield. Yang, Adamida and Dyson Maida are the front three. For the visitors, it's Shamal George in goal. A defence of Marcus Fraser, Alex Gogic and Richard King. Jaden Richardson, Killian Phillips, Fraser Taylor, Mark O'Hara and Declan John are across the middle. Roland Idowu and Mikel Mandron are the top two. And I'll hand it back to you, Andrew, as we're about to have a minute's silence here ahead of kick-off.
Yeah, that minute's silence because John Clark and John Fallon, two Lisbon Lions, sadly passing away over the summer. Two men who are eternal when it comes to Celtic.
Yeah, John Clark, the ultimate Celtic man. Billy McNeil and John Clark were the mainstays on Celtic's run to Lisbon on the 25th of May 1967. John Fallon, the stand-in goalkeeper, was on the bench that day. Again, another outstanding Celtic man. Day heavy on nostalgia. I can't believe Paul McStay's 60 years old now. I remember his old firm debut at Celtic Park, and the Dazzler was in the Rangers team that day. That's how old Paul McStay is. But a day heavy on nostalgia, and when the whistle blows, it'll be a day heavy in the burden of the responsibility that the Celtic players will carry after what Brendan Rodgers has had to say, and after what happened to Rangers yesterday. We're back to my old cliche. A draw's a disaster, a defeat's a catastrophe. A draw was a disaster for Russell Martin yesterday. A defeat would be a catastrophe for Celtic today.
Yeah, just coming to the end of that minute's applause for the two Celtic legends, John Clark and John Fallon. So just about to get underway at Celtic Park for Celtic and St Mirren's first league game of the season. It kind of seems as if St Mirren are always just there for Celtic's big occasions at the moment. Stephen Robinson, I wonder, he must be sick of it, because every time he seems to go to Celtic Park, they're either lifting a trophy or raising a flag at the moment.
Yeah, when the fixtures came out, and you always look for who the champions are playing first, and he sees his club are there, I'm sure he wouldn't have been very happy. But listen, he's got a very, very good squad together again. They'll make it difficult for Celtic. They won't just be here to partake in the flag and everything else. They want to come here and cause an upset, and as Hugh said there, the back end of last season they were very close to doing so. So again, he's talking about getting in the top 6, but they'll fear no one. St Mirren are a really well drilled team. I'm not saying they're going to go to Celtic Park and win this game of football, but they'll aim to give a good account of themselves, and that's one team. Russell Martin was speaking about his team not running hard enough. St Mirren will definitely be running today.
In the final league game of last season, St Mirren were better than Celtic at Celtic Park the whole game long. And then James Forrest, with virtually the last kick of the ball, changed negativity into positivity because it was an important goal for James. It maintained his record of having scored every season in 17 at Celtic, and it also got Celtic off the hook with a draw. But St Mirren exposed weaknesses in the squad, and those weaknesses have not yet been fully addressed, and that's why Brendan Rodgers is unhappy.
Yeah, we will keep you up to date with what is happening at Celtic Park. Just 30 seconds on the clock between Celtic and St Mirren. Of course, it is goalless. 78 minutes on the clock between Dundee and Hibs. Hibs took a 2-0 lead in that game, both goals coming from Kieran Bowie, but Finn Robertson got one before half-time, so we'll see how that unfolds in the last 10-15 minutes or so. A 2-2 draw between Falkirk and Dundee United. Earlier on today, it was a 2-2 draw between Kilmarnock and Livingston yesterday, and of course the one which I think will be a big talking point today, Motherwell 1, Rangers 1, and we will look back on that. Any calls on your team's action this weekend? 0141 951 1025. Maybe you're a Celtics fan or a St Mirren fan watching along at home and you want to get involved. Your thoughts on this game that is live on the TV. 0141 951 1025. One sight that a lot of Celtic fans will be delighted to see will be Kieran Tierney back in a Celtic top at Celtic Park.
He adds to the nostalgic aspect of the day. Kieran Tierney, the fan who got a jersey, and he adored playing for Celtic, earned them £25 million, comes back as a free agent, and was honest enough to say it was now or never, because he wasn't going to go back to Celtic when his legs had gone. But Celtic had made a shabby start to this match defensively. and they have to be careful. St Mirren have had a couple of opportunities.
Yeah, there's nearly a massive mix-up between Schmeichel and Carter Vickers. I think it was Carter Vickers in the end just took control of the situation and cleared it. It fell to Phillips, but luckily for Celtic, fell to his wrong foot, probably about 40 yards out. Otherwise, I think on his favoured foot, he had an empty net to attempt to hit. But listen, Celtic, it's only a couple of minutes into it, but I expect them to start, asserting their dominance on this game very, very quickly.
Yeah, the ball's just been played into the box there. Daizen Maeda trying to get in behind. Will be a goal kick to St Mirren. As I said, we'll keep you up to date with what's happening at Celtic Park. But on this new Sunday format, we are taking calls throughout. Neil is a Rangers fan in Cumbernauld. Neil, how do you reflect on yesterday's game?
First of all, I just want to say thank God you guys are on a Sunday now. You have just saved my Sunday. I travel down from Cumbernauld down to Bolton every Sunday.
Wow.
It's a 3-hour drive and use it on for 3 hours. Absolutely perfect.
Good stuff. We'll have you every single weekend, Neil.
It's brilliant. Looking forward to it. My main point, if you let me go through it, is the natural balance of the team. To me, is distorted. We know we've got Aaron's playing at left back, who's right-footed, but I also want to talk about the midfield as well. Nico Raskin, right-footed, and he's on the left centre midfield. Mo Diamande, left-footed, and he's on the right centre of midfield. Then you've got Kieran Dowell, left-footed, on right mid, and Gassama or Curtis, right-footed, on the left wing. I understand with the wingers because it allows you to bring your inverted fullbacks into play, but it also allows you to get shots away if they go on the outside on the overlap. But between Raskin and Diamande, it's not working in there with those two in those positions. If there's a through ball they can make or a quick cross that they can make, it's slowing them down because they need to cut back onto their strong foot to be able to do that. And when they're coming back in, they're having to find another player that's further back, Joe Rothwell, etc. So I just think the natural balance of the team is totally distorted.
Yeah, I think this is one of these things that maybe 20 years ago, if someone brought up what foot each player was, that it wouldn't really, people would wonder what on earth you're talking about. But how important is it in the modern game, Marvin, to have that correct balance, the full Rangers backline all being right-footed when you're trying to build out from the back? You look at that midfield, as Neil highlighted as well. Can that be a real issue?
It can be an issue in terms of building up from the back if everyone is right-footed or everyone's left-footed, because naturally the ball goes to Rangers left-back at this moment in time and he's going to be the press and you're going to try and force him on that weaker foot, as Neil's saying there. So it can cause a problem 100%, because neither of the two players on the left-hand side are willing to go long because it's on their weaker foot if they're shown outside the pitch. In terms of the midfielders, it's something that's quite common now in terms of, having a left centre midfielder who's right-footed, especially if you're playing in a side that want to build up through the thirds, because naturally, if I'm playing and I'm a right foot on the left-hand side, I'm coming in and taking the ball on my right foot, from a centre-half or whatever else it might be, and it's a lot easier for me to play through the lines. But as Neil, mentioned there, when you go into the top third and these players are making forward runs, they might be an opportunity to make a cross when they've made that third man run, but it is then on their weaker foot. So it's about trying to get that balance. And obviously, the way that Russell Martin wants to play, he doesn't probably want those players, breaking in behind and putting crosses into the box, hence why they're on the wrong side. But I definitely think Rangers, as I said, come the end of this window, they have much more of a balance. They got Jeffy, he's on the bench now and making his way back to full fitness. I imagine he'll come in at left back, and then that gives competition at right back. But
Russell Martin was asked about Jeffy on Friday in the left back situation, and he said it's not a fitness thing with Jeffy. Basically said that Jeffy knows what he needs to work on to get into the team, and that Max Aarons is being selected there because at the moment he feels he's the best option.
That can cause problems for me. I just think so. Listen, Russell Martin sees these players every day, like you said, we're on the outside looking in, but I just think from a pressing point of view, everyone will be saying let it go to Rangers left side of centre half or left back, and then we'll press from there, because they don't really have that option to go long. So then they're trying to play themselves, through the lines, and that's when Motherwell picking up the ball yesterday. They were robbing that next pass.
Russell Martin's assertion has always been that there are other players not doing enough in training for him to say, well, I should take him out and put him in. So that's a problem. The other factor at work here is that Rangers will bring in more players before this transfer window closes. I think they brought in 9 so far, and there will be more to come. And it raises another interesting point, that the squad's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The wage bill's getting higher and higher and higher. So things are going to happen, will need to happen in both an incoming and outgoing sense, because the squad is bloated, and as Marvin will tell you, that's not any use to a head coach on a daily basis trying to organise training.
Neil, are there the players in the building at the moment that you feel are able to solve those issues, or do you think that will purely come from Russell Martin having to go out and get those players?
I think we need to go out and get the players, but I also believe you need to play the players in the right position. Is it Aaron's or have it right back? Make the decision. We know we need to go get a left back, so is it the new left back and you left it? What do we need to do? There's going to be new players come in, but like Mr. Keevins says, we are overloaded with deadwood, and it seems to be that way for the last 4 or 5 years. We've been overloaded with deadwood and trying to get moving players on, and the fact that we've only received one bid over the summer, and that was for Dessers, speaks loudly about how other teams value our players.
Well, the other problem that Rangers have, of course, is that the players are on substantial wages at Ibrox, such as Rabbi Matondo, just to pluck a name out of the air. And if you're interested in buying Rabbi Matondo, you say, but not at that wage. So that might be one of the contributory factors as to why players are not being offloaded as they should be.
I think that's the biggest problem. I think you look at the players that Rangers will want to offload, as Hugh said there, and none of them are going to get, more wages than they're currently on, outside of maybe Raskin if he makes a move at this moment in time. So, you've got one player that's going to get more money than he's currently on, but the players that you're trying to offload will be lucky to get half the money that they're on, and they're not going to leave the building, and they're well within their rights to do so as well. They'll sit their contracts out, and Rangers can't keep bringing players in. I think Neil said there about another left back, but you have Yilmaz and Jeffy in the building already. It's not their fault that neither of those two are playing. You're playing a right back at left back. I can't see the board saying, you know what, let's go and sign a third left back, because again, it's going to create massive problems. They'll be too bloated in certain areas.
Well, thank you to Neil. If you've got anything to add to that, 01419511025. Celtic fans and St Mirren fans interested to get your thoughts while this game is ongoing at Celtic Park. Just shy of 10 minutes on the clock. I think a stoppage in play, a pretty heavy collision between Shamal George and Adam Ida. So Shamal George is getting treatment. Not too much has happened. Celtic sort of settling into the game a bit more than they were in the opening minutes.
Yeah, Maeda's made a few runs in behind, and they've looked to try and hit him. I think Tierney's hit one pass, and Hatate's done one as well. And he's given it a thumbs up. He's just ran away from him slightly. Like you said there, Shamal George got a massive collision there with Adam Ida. Adam Ida well within his rights to go for it. It's a ball that he's taken a touch. Gogic has done really well to get himself between, player and ball, and Ida's trying to nick the ball around the other side. It's just a natural coming together. But yeah, listen, it's, as I said, 10 minutes into the game, but Celtic have been a bit better in wide areas. Just want to see a little bit more from Yang.
Yeah. Is he still on the park? Is he still?
I knew that would get you going.
I thought that was honesty on the part of George, the St Mirren goalkeeper, and Adam Ida, because the goalkeeper did what he had to do, and Ida, as Marvin said, perfectly entitled to go for that ball. He's got past Gogic. But overall, it's a fairly tame opening. Still waiting for the game to come alive, I think.
Yeah, I did see a shot of Manchester City centre-back Jemai Simpson-Pusey, as I'm reliably informed it's pronounced, sitting in the stand. That deal will be announced soon. He's going to join on loan from Manchester City, so clearly that is a done deal if he is there at the stadium. So we want your thoughts on whether it's on this game, Celtic St Mirren, whether it is on Motherwell against Rangers yesterday, or the rest of the Premiership matches, no matter who you support, or down the divisions as well. 01419511025.
You are the voice of Scottish football. Call 0141 951 1025. Clyde One Super Scoreboard.
Marvin Bartley and Hugh Keevins here with me, Andrew Maclean, on Clyde One Super Scoreboard. We are taking your calls through to 7 o'clock, so get in touch. 0141 951 1025. We've been reflecting on that game between Motherwell and Rangers yesterday, so maybe you are a Motherwell or Rangers fan that wants to add to that. 0141 951 1025. Celtic currently in action against St Mirren on Flag Day. 15 minutes on the clock, still goalless between the two teams. So any thoughts as that's ongoing, we'd like to hear them. 0141 951 1025. An update of what's happening elsewhere is into injury time between Dundee and Hibs. Hibs still have that 2-1 advantage that they had at half time, so that will be maybe a nervy end to the game for Hibs, because I think Dundee, not a lot maybe expected of Dundee just given their Premier Sports Cup group stages, but running Hibs close up to this point.
If you look at our season predictions, you'll find that the only thing that's expected of Dundee is relegation for most people. But fair play to Hibs, because it was a dreadful disappointment for them against Midtjylland. The goal from Midtjylland was stunning. These things happen, as Marvin knows, last minute of extra time, but they've regrouped. They've got on with it, and they look as if they'll hold on for 3 valuable points.
Stephen is a Celtic fan in Kirkintilloch. Stephen, what are you making of today's game so far?
Well, listen, I've just literally just turned it on this second, guys. Listen, see, looking at that lineup, that's probably a lineup in the middle of last season that we would have put as one of our lower setups. I think it's just a sad indictment of the board not backing Brendan thoroughly. We're considerably weaker, sadly. We've lost a lot of offensive players and a lot of goals from the team. And I personally believe the board have simply just not backed Brendan, which is I think is really unfair, because when he came back here, he'd left under a slight cloud, and he came back and he had to win back the fans. He's done that. He's kept his end of the bargain up. He's won almost everything. And I feel that the board are culpable of not backing him.
Before we even get to the transfers, Stephen, Brendan Rodgers' situation, not to have been offered a new contract, an extension to his existing agreement, I find incredible. As you say, he's contested 13 trophies as Celtic manager over 2 spells at the club, and he's won 11 of them. In other words, Brendan Rodgers is a serial winner. He has now entered the last season of his agreement, and by his own admission has not been offered a new contract. So the people at Celtic are as dilatory when it comes to the manager's contract as they are when it comes to signing players. And as you rightly point out, the team today is weaker than a team that Celtic could have chosen at points of last season. They've taken in £25 million since January through the sale of Kyogo Furuhashi and Nicholas Kuhn. £25 million. And they've spent a fraction of that. They even get money back on Jeremy Frimpong when he joined Liverpool. And Brendan Rodgers, for me, I think, handed in his notice on Friday by what he had to say at the press conference. He's fed up, pleading for a show of ambition from Celtic. He's not getting it, and I think Brendan's decided he's had enough.
Celtic are in here, could be the opener, but Dyson Maeda squares the ball across the box. Jamal George had been drawn out of his goal, but no Celtic player was able to get on the end of it. Hugh describes it as Brendan Rodgers putting in his notice. He says it's not a plea for the board to back him. What do you make of it? Did it seem like a plea? Was he calling out for the players to be signed that he's wanting? Does it sound just like an attitude that he's already defeated?
No, I think it's just another honest, interview from him. I think he's came out and said exactly how he feels. He's obviously let the board know how he feels behind closed doors. They've got their visions in terms of how Celtic should do in the transfer market, and Brendan Rodgers will have his. One thing I'll say is that there's not a single manager out there that thinks they have enough in terms of players coming in, or the right calibre of players, or the right amount of money. But I definitely agree with what Hugh's saying there. Celtic have brought in a lot of money into the football club. I don't expect by any stretch of the imagination for them to end with the same squad they have out there today come the end of the transfer window. But I do think it's getting more difficult for them to find these kind of hidden gems. He's constantly trying to go out there. We saw it with Ange as well, and Brendan's done it, bringing players in, making them better and selling them on. They've spent a lot of money on Engels and Ida, who they haven't justified that price tag. So there could be a reluctance from the board to go out there again and spend like £9 million or £11 million. But it's also a lot more difficult to find these £4 or £5 million players that are going to come in and improve this team, because, as you said there, Celtic are serial winners. So to get players into the building that can come and improve this starting 11, which is what Brendan wants, is also going to be difficult.
I was going to say, Stephen, did those comments from Brendan Rodgers on Friday concern you?
Celtic fan, Brendan Rodgers is, I would say, is probably the best manager that Celtic will have, right, in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years. He is an elite manager, whether some people would believe it or not. There's not many people are looking to come to Scotland and manage the big two clubs. You know, sadly, that's just where it is. There is bigger money elsewhere. I think Brendan is an astute manager. He's very intelligent, and he knows his words will have ramifications. I feel as if he's put it out there. Like Hugh was saying, I think it's a notice of intent from a man who's kind of letting the board know, look, I will have options. But what I would say is Brendan has won favour of the fans after coming back, after leaving and then coming back. So the fans are all on his side, I would say.
There's a Champions League draw tomorrow, Stephen. Celtic will find out their opponent, and therefore it'll be a two-leg tie with tens of millions of pounds at stake. And Celtic are still playing Yang up front. Kuhn's gone. Jota sadly out for the remainder of this year. Kyogo was never replaced. They are, and I'm being polite when I use the word dilatory. There are plenty of other words I could use to describe what's going on, and Brendan Rodgers has clearly had enough.
Well, thank you to Stephen. 01419511025. Plenty of time to get your calls in. We're here until 7 o'clock, but let's go to Dens Park, shall we? Because it's full time between Dundee and Hibs. Dave Galloway's there.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Full-time Dundee 1, Hibs 2. Hibs started very positively, forcing a couple of quick-fire corners. They were dominating possession and took a thoroughly deserved lead in 28 minutes. Bowie with a neat turn and shot into the bottom corner after the home defence couldn't clear the danger. And he capitalised on more ropey defending 3 minutes later, netting with a cool, composed finish after Obita's shot was saved by McCracken. But Dundee got a goal back in the 36th minute. Iredale slipped up and Hay capitalised before setting up Finn Robertson for a lovely finish. Hibs started the second half brightly, but Dundee had a good chance through Jones's dangerous cross in from the left-hand side. However, Graham just couldn't quite get his head to the ball. The visitors went close with Campbell's back post header from a corner, producing a fantastic parry by McCracken. Obita's cross-come shot went just over the bar as they went all out for a third goal. They were doing most of the attacking, looked well in control. Both teams, as the match progressed, made a flurry of chances, a flurry of changes, but that didn't really affect the match. On the balance of play, the winning margin really should have been a lot more substantial. A good 3 points, though, for the Hibees, to the delight of their impressive 3,000-strong travelling support. However, it's just the start to the season. Stephen Presley's Dark Blues didn't want. It ended here at sun-soaked Dens Park. Dundee 1, Hibs 2.
Yeah, good start to the season for Hibs, and Kieran Bowie as well. 6 goals he got last season. I think he probably impressed Hibs supporters as a striker, despite the fact that the goals tally is maybe not as impressive. But you know, he's growing as a Hibs player. A couple of goals on the opening day of the league season, that'll do him the world of good. Yeah, listen, he's a player that if Hibs can keep fit, it will be a massive asset for them. We saw the back end of last season getting called up into the Scotland squad as well. Whenever he's played for Hibs, whether it's coming on or starting games, he's always been really, really effective for them. As you said, starting this season with 2 goals as well was absolutely massive. And it's massive for the club as well. In Europe, obviously, as Hugh said earlier, going out, losing an extra time, they would have been tired, there's no doubt about it. But you see, getting that win today, that will give them an uplift. Obviously, they go into another game on Thursday, but it was huge for them to start the season well, especially after the way they started last season. So David Gray will be absolutely delighted, and so will Bowie with the 2 goals. Yeah, 2-1 win for Hibs over Dundee. Still goalless between Celtic and St Mirren. 24 minutes on the clock, and we're still taking your calls for another 2 hours. So 0141951 1025. Give us a call now, and you could be up next.
The headlines. 01419511025. Clyde 1 Super Scoreboard.
Marvin, Bartley and Hugh Keevins here with me, Andrew Maclean, on what is a brand new permanent time slot for Clyde 1 Super Scoreboard. We are going to be here every Sunday from 4 until 7. It's going to be a comprehensive review of the weekend's action. You'll get the chance to have your say for the full 3 hours, so get your calls in now. 01419511025. We've been reflecting on that draw between Motherwell and Rangers yesterday, and Russell Martin's comments as well. We'll hear a bit more from him as the show goes on. We're watching Celtic against St Mirren. It's Flag Day at Celtic Park. Half an hour in, no real big chances for either team, would you say, so far in this game? There was the one where Dyson Maeda got round Shamal George, but it was a very tight angle.
Yeah, no cutting edge from Celtic. I go back to that front three. Dyson Maeda, nothing to be said of a negative nature about him. Player of the year, terrific. But the other two, Ida, Yang, nothing. So it's a reason why St Mirren go close. It's a reason why Brendan Rodgers has spoken out as forcefully as he did. Good save there from Kasper Schmeichel. So St Mirren have every chance today, and the Celtic squad is reflective of poor recruitment.
Yeah, Mark O'Hara with a curling shot there from about 20-25 yards. Kasper Schmeichel, it was straight at him through a few bodies, just decided to punch it rather than gather.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that, was a comfortable height for him to parry away rather than, trying to hold it, spilling it, because there's a lot of St Mirren players that would have been, first to the rebound. But St Mirren are growing in confidence that, the further this game goes on. Celtic, if they've looked dangerous at all, has been between Tierney and Maeda down that left-hand side. Maeda, made a real early movement off a free kick, as you spoke about there, Andrew, and goes round Shamal George, but unable to hit the target with it. But yeah, after 30 minutes, St Mirren will be absolutely delighted with the way the game's going at this moment in time.
Well, if you want to give us your opinion on this game as it goes on, 01419511025. We'll continue to look back, as I said, on Motherwell against Rangers and the rest of the weekend's action. A draw between Kilmarnock and Livingston. We'll go into a bit more depth with Marvin Bartley on that. Of course, part of the Livingston coaching staff again. Falkirk drawing with Dundee United earlier on. A win for Hibs against Dundee. Or maybe you're more interested in what was happening down the divisions as well. We want to hear from you. 01419511025. James is a Celtic fan in East Kilbride. James, what do you make of what you're seeing so far?
Yeah, slow start. As the panel was saying, nothing to worry about, but obviously not making a lot of chances now and then. But again, it's kind of the way Celtic can be sometimes. Can be a game of two halves. Second half, they just kind of turn it on if we need to. So hopefully that'll be what happens today.
Is your interest just more generally about what's happening with Celtic? Brendan Rodgers' comments, the transfer window so far?
Yeah, it's kind of mainly for Hugh. I've been kind of listening to the show sort of kind of during the week a wee bit and yesterday. And kind of, I get where Hugh's coming from, but I'm surprised that Hugh's as shocked as what he is with how Brendan's being. I mean, I'm getting a bit of deja vu just with the language that Brendan's using for when we were in this position last time, for Brendan's first tenure. He was unhappy with the signing policy. He was unhappy with the budget situation, not getting the money he wanted. We've been here before. This is not the first time Brendan's expressed concerns and issues in this department. And, I don't even know if he'll last the season. It could be a case of come January, if that offer comes, if things aren't going his way, it could just be, history repeating itself.
So are you resigned, James, to this being Brendan Rodgers' last season?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I'd probably put money on him maybe not even lasting the season, Hugh, because as I say, history could repeat itself here.
I think he will definitely last the season, because
surely he has to, just based on what he said.
Yeah,
he said on several occasions that he will see out his 3 years.
Yeah, he's not going to put a stain on his own legacy. As I say, this is a man who's won 11 of 13 trophies as Celtic manager, who wants to go out on a high, the kind of high that he deserves given what he's done for Celtic. I'm just amazed that Celtic may be of the opinion they can find someone better than Brendan Rodgers. As I say, they've been slow, not only in terms of bringing players in, but apparently, according to Brendan, there has been no contractual offer to him at all. And I find that very strange.
Do you think that's something that the board will look at maybe after the window has been completed? Do you think all their kind of minds and all their energy at this moment in time is going on, trying to bring players in by the end of the transfer window? Because I think it's a lot easier to open these negotiations with Brendan Rodgers if they go out and spend another 15 or 20 million pounds than it is at this moment in time or the start of the summer when they haven't brought any players in.
I think the time to do Brendan Rodgers' contract was in the summer when he's approaching the last season. Do your business then. But Roger Hannett on yesterday's programme suggested that there were people inside Celtic Park who weren't best pleased by Brendan and what he said on Friday. Well, my answer to that is Celtic are better off with Brendan Rodgers and better off without those who were displeased.
James, the fact that you feel it's going to be Brendan Rodgers last season, you think he might not even last the season, does that mean you don't have any confidence that he's going to get backed, or that any big money will get spent this window, or do you feel that still could happen but it's not going to be enough to convince Brendan Rodgers to stay?
I don't even think it's up to the board. I think Brendan's probably made his mind up. As Hugh says, if he sticks to his word and sees out this season, does Brendan really want to do another 2 or 3 years here? I don't know, only he knows. But I think it's the same with Celtic every year. We wait until the Champions League result is either goes for us or against us, and then they start to, the purse strings open slightly. It'll be the same again. If we qualify for the Champions League, you probably see a signing or two come in of note, but that's probably what I imagine will happen.
But what kind of business practice is it, James, that you go into a Champions League qualifier where the multi-million pound side stake is there? If you don't qualify, you lose that. What kind of business practice is it that doesn't allow you to bring in the very best players to ensure that you do qualify?
I agree, completely agree, but as a lot of the guys were saying yesterday, Celtic, they run it as a business first and foremost, and I think they know, even if they get these signings in, Celtic, with all due respect, Celtic don't do anything and will never do anything. I know in the Champions League last season was great. The new format, we've done well. We get through to that, the second phase. But realistically, these 7-1 defeats and stuff, the board know that this is going to happen regardless of the signings they make. So therefore, they've got their business head on, and the signings they make, it's not for the Champions League. It's never been for the Champions League. It's for being domestically only.
I think it changes the calibre of player, though. Sorry to interrupt you, James. I think it changes the calibre of player that Celtic can bring in if there is Champions League football guaranteed. There'll definitely be targets now for Brendan Rodgers that will be saying, or their agents will be saying, well, if you were in the Champions League guaranteed to be in it, these players would be signing. There'll be other players that, if they weren't to make the Champions League, I think they'll have two totally different lists. And believe me, that there will be players out there saying, I want to play in the Champions League. If Celtic are in the Champions League, all of a sudden, Celtic are able to attract these players. If they're not in the Champions League, then unfortunately they can't. So I do get why there's a bit of patience. I get it. It's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because then people are saying, if you don't have these good players, then how are you guaranteed to qualify? There's no guarantees anyway. But, as I said, there's going to be players out there that want Champions League football, and they will come to the football club if Celtic are in there.
My concern, James, would be that yesterday's draw for Rangers would encourage the Celtic hierarchy to say, well, there you are. We don't really need to strengthen the team. They're struggling. I just find the whole business unfathomable, and Brendan Rodgers clearly finds it unacceptable. And I think the Celtic supporters, with their 8% increase on their season ticket, should find it unacceptable as well.
Well, thank you to James. Celtic fans, keep those thoughts coming. 01419511025. Spinning a few plates here just with the timing of this game and of course the reaction to other matches. Let's hear a bit more from Russell Martin, because there's been a lot of reaction, hasn't there, to his post-match comments after that draw with Motherwell yesterday, and he was talking about some of the issues with players and the fact that they were existing before he came to the club.
When I knew I was in for the job, I watched a lot of games where players just do what they want, and that's not on the manager. That's not. I thought Barry did a great job. I could see what Philippe was trying to do, but players sometimes, same problems really. Want to run, sometimes don't, and you need better mentality than that to play for this football club and to actually win things. So to playing for this football club and being successful at this football club, which I know very well, is two very different things. So you need to want to win and fight and take the ball all the time. We work out with the guys who were all in all the time. Lyle Cameron come on, was fantastic. Just ran, just played his position, did everything that worked on in training, was great. John and Nasser, Jack did great. So there's a few really, really good performances.
Gary is a Rangers fan in Hart Hill. Gary, how do you reflect on everything that happened yesterday?
Hi guys, it's good to have you back on the radio. Makes a change for a Saturday afternoon and Sunday. I just feel yesterday Rangers were pretty poor. Motherwell actually deserved to beat Rangers out and out. They didn't play as a team, and when Steven Gerrard was in charge, his team was a lot stronger than what Russell Martin's got if you look back over the previous years. And now that's 2 seasons in the bounce that Rangers have started their opening campaign, and it's been a draw. They drew with Hearts last year 0-0, and now Motherwell 1-1. So they're needing a lot of changes to make them actually fight for this league, because they've opened the door for Celtic today.
Yeah, it's actually 3 years in a row now that Rangers haven't won an opening day fixture, because it was a defeat to Kilmarnock, wasn't it, on the opening day two years ago. But how big a concern will it be when you look at the squad generally with the players that have been brought in? Because Russell Martin still, he says, has a lot of work to do. There are players he's brought in that haven't featured yet. You look at Tello Asgard, Emmanuel Fernandez was brought in from Peterborough, hasn't been selected to start yet. How far away from the squad that Russell Martin either wants or needs do you think this Rangers team are?
I think he probably want to bring another 3 or 4 players. But as Hugh mentioned earlier on in the show, there's going to have to be that balance between it, because at this moment in time, the squad's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he still has players on the books who are taking a wage that he doesn't actually want at the football club. But they still need somewhere to train. That's your biggest problem. It's not, match day squads, because these players will know they're out of the squad. But when he's putting training sessions together, there's going to be far too many players there. I think Rangers are still short from what Russell Martin wants, 3 or 4. But also, he needs to get more out of the players that are in the building. And I think that's what he's saying yesterday. He's not just putting it all on, I need 3 or 4 players, because that's easy for managers to do. He's saying about the players in there, you have to do more. If these players were playing at 100% tilt and doing everything Russell Martin said they should be doing, and then they draw the game, he'll then look at himself. He said maybe it's a tactical thing. But until those players are hitting the levels that they should be in terms of effort and application, then he's going to look at them. They can't just keep signing players, and he definitely understands that. Needs to get more out of the players, and like you said, it's come down to mentality and ego and all these sorts of things. And just quickly, he said about, players doing what they want. I remember Andrew Postecoglou said that as well at a point when he was at Celtic right at the start. Players are going off script, and if they do that, they won't play for me. Managers have a way of playing. They set the team up to play that way, so everyone's on the same wavelength. As soon as you get 1 or 2 not sticking to what they should be doing, the whole thing goes to pot. And that's when you start losing or drawing games that you should be winning. Listen, I totally understand what he's saying, and it's up to the players now to step up to the mark. When you have a look at, we obviously talked about Russell Martin bringing in his own players, but he also, as Marvin said, needs to get the best out of the players that were already there. Will that be a concern that players like potentially Nico Raskin, Mohamed Diamande, John Souttar maybe aren't playing to their best level in the early stages of this campaign?
So much was expected of Raskin. And he, like everyone else, was quiet yesterday. Gassama got his first start after scoring home and away against Panathinaikos. You're expecting big things from him, but he was easily subdued by Motherwell. It might be the case that it will come together and quickly for Russell Martin, but I think yesterday's result puts him under a bit of pressure with regard to Tuesday's match against Victoria Pilsen. Others will be brought in, I have no doubt, because Rangers seem capable of getting transfers across the line quickly, as opposed to their rivals who take an eternity to do anything. But there's no doubt that Russell Martin has to get more out of the players who started yesterday, because he seems to have no faith in those who are part of this bloated squad that he looks at in training every day.
He has to get the balance right as well, doesn't he? Yeah. Between Raskin and Rodwell. Hugh said there about Raskin, how important he was last season. His position's been altered as well. He's gone from playing in that 6th position, which he looked so comfortable in that Rangers team, to playing as a number 8. So there's also the balance of, yes, I'm bringing in players that potentially will improve our starting 11, but that can't be, to the detriment of players who are already there that were doing well as well.
We've talked about the issues at both ends of the park. When you look in the middle, Rangers look really exposed in midfield, and it looked as if the instructions are that Nicholas Raskin, Mohamed Diamande have to push out a bit wider. The expectation then is that James Tavernier, Max Aarons tuck in. It didn't really seem as if that was working every time the ball got turned over. Joe Rothwell just seemed to be the only Rangers player in the centre of the pitch, and Rangers got completely overrun. How do Rangers fix that?
Well, sometimes it's just time. As Russell Martin said, I think they're 6 weeks into, him being in at the football club. So there's going to be teething problems 100%. And that would be something that, himself and the coaching staff and the analysts will look up, and then they'll show the players this and say, when the ball's in this position, we have to do this. There's always going to be, a couple of things where they look, too exposed, etc., etc. But I definitely agree with you. And Motherwell probably, realised that was happening in the game or before the game. And tactically, they were saying, when we turn the ball over, go straight at them, because Rothwell will be in there by himself. So you have to give them credit for that as well. But from Rangers' point of view, it's definitely something they're going to have to improve. They're set up behind the ball, during the transitions, because if they're that open, no respect to Motherwell, against, say, a Celtic, for example, they're going to find themselves in massive trouble.
Given what you saw yesterday, Gary, where are your confidence levels in Rangers being able to find success this season?
for definitely, because they're lacking goals big time, and as I say, midfield, they need somebody in the middle that's actually got to be solid and actually drive the ball for it instead of just playing backwards all the time. They want to go forward, no backwards. Everyone wants to see that, like.
Well, we'll see. Celtic
big chance for Celtic. Have hit the woodwork, and the ball comes back in. Shamal George manages to get a hold of that and gathers and just goes to ground. We'll see out a bit of time. It was Benjamin Negron looking for his first Celtic goal. It was Dyson Maeda down the left. Negron, after the ball was played into the box, a left-footed shot. Was a save by Shamal George, wasn't it, onto the bar?
Yeah, great first touch from Negron, though. He comes in from the left-hand side from Maeda, takes the first touch on his right foot, taking it back across his body onto his left foot. Great strike on target, and to be honest, from Shamal George, that's a fantastic save. He manages, I think he just gets his right foot to it, goes off the bar right as the half-time whistle goes as well.
To go back to Gary's concerns, Tuesday becomes very, very important now, because Tuesday will bleed into Saturday night against Dundee. So Tuesdays, you've got to measure Rangers' reaction on Tuesday.
Well, thank you to Gary. Let's go to Celtic Park, because it's half-time between Celtic and St Mirren. Gabriel Antoniazzi's watching on.
Yes, Andrew, it is 0-0 between Celtic and St Mirren at the interval. Brendan Rodgers' side have control of the ball, but have struggled to break down this solid St Mirren team. The defending champions made a bit of a shaky start, nearly a huge mix-up between Cameron Carter-Vickers and Kasper Schmeichel. They did settle into it, both full-backs doing well, probably Celtic's best attacking outlets. Kieran Tierney looked strong on his return, beating his man down the left a few times with good balls into the box and a couple of efforts on goal as well. There was a big opening when last year's Player of the Year, Dyson Maeda, rounded Shamal George in the Buddies' goal. But no one was there for his cutback. Looked like he could have scored himself into the empty net. And the closest that Celtic have come is right before the break there. Benjamin Negron, who has looked quite good on his full debut, had his close-range effort tipped onto the bar very well by Shamal George. St Mirren did start to grow into the game after about 25 minutes. They had good spells in Celtic's third. O'Hara had a good curling effort, a good save from Schmeichel. They had very, very good shape defensively. No gaps in that back three, back five. And Stephen Robinson has his men very well drilled as ever. He'll be asking for more of the same from his players in the second 45, but Rodgers needs more here. Just lacking that spark up top. You do wonder how long until Celtic turn to their bench. Half-time here, it's 0-0.
Yeah, goalless between Celtic and St Mirren at half-time, so maybe you're a Celtic or St Mirren fan that wants to let us know what you thought of that first half. 0141951 1025, and we'll speak to you next.
Taking your calls on Scottish football. 0141 951 1025. This is Clyde One Super Scoreboard.
Half time between Celtic and St Mirren at Celtic Park on Flag Day for Brendan Rodgers' side, and goalless between the two. Marvin Bartley and Hugh Keevins here with me, Andrew Maclean. We're here through till 7 o'clock, so no matter what team you support, your team probably in action this weekend. We want to hear your thoughts on the opening weekend. 0141 951 1025. We're just seeing that Benjamin Negron chance again, the best chance of the half. A really good save, wasn't it, by Shamal George to keep him out.
Changes the whole complexion, doesn't it? Because if Celtic win one up, for all that they have been poor, it sends them in an optimistic way, and it's a sickener for St Mirren. But goalkeeper does his job. I think this team that Brendan Rodgers has picked is one where the manager can turn to the director's box and say, this is all I have left.
Did he have much choice, though? Is there anyone on the bench that could have started to make the team look stronger?
I think now, given what we have seen the first 45 minutes, then I know we have a joke about Yang, but he has nothing to offer Celtic, and he could be removed. And again, you're having to go back to a 34-year-old James Forrest, but James Forrest would offer more to the game than Yang. And I'm afraid Adam Ida, who promised 30 goals this season, well, he's still 30 short of 30. And I would like to see Shin Yamada given a chance second half, because Celtic are going nowhere. Other than the chance from Benjamin Negron, Celtic are going nowhere. And St Mirren are playing very well, absolutely sure of themselves, and there's no guarantee that Celtic will get any points today.
Would you expect to see changes at half-time from Brendan Rodgers, or do you think he'll maybe wait it out and maybe get to that 60-minute mark?
Yeah, I think he could wait it out. I agree with Hugh, in terms of the top end and actually making Shamal George pull off save after save. They've not managed to do that. But they have had a lot of possession. It's clearly something that Brendan Rodgers has worked on in terms of the wingers running in behind and behind that back five and trying to force them back. But, St Mirren will tire as well. It's very, very difficult for them, in terms of what they're doing, because whenever they do have possession, they press really, really quickly, especially, 15 minutes onwards in that first half. So they'll begin to tire as well. And then, Celtic begin to pull them apart. So I expect him to leave it the way it is. Ask those players definitely are on the pitch. I need more from you, before he turns to his bench, like you said, around that 60-minute mark to freshen it up again and go get St Mirren again if they don't score a goal within the first 15 minutes of the second half.
Yeah, it's game plan working for St Mirren so far, isn't it? Because they're keeping Celtic at bay. They are going to give up chances. It's always going to happen at Celtic Park. You need your goalkeeper to be on form as well. But Stephen Robinson, you think he'll be pretty happy with what he's seen so far from his team?
Well, he came to Celtic Park, final game of last season in the league, and his team were better than Celtic. And he's gone to Celtic Park, first game of the new season in the league, and his team are as good as Celtic. Brendan Rodgers has been trying desperately to draw attention to the fact that Celtic are significantly weaker than they were last season, and no one appears to be paying any attention.
Do Celtic have the difference makers, do you feel, on the bench in that final third? You mentioned James Forrest, the only other attacking options, Johnny Kenny, who we'll see how big a part he has to play this season, and Shin Yamada. Of course, we haven't really seen anything of Shin Yamada yet, so hard to judge.
Forrest will have to come on, because Yang is contributing nothing to the game.
He's not the only one though, is he?
No, but I'm starting with Forrest. He'll have to come on. And I'm suggesting that if my choice is Yamada or Johnny Kenny, then I'm saying we'll have a look at Yamada, because he did impress pre-season. But at the moment, I'd also bring on Engels to see what he can do. But at the moment, Celtic are uninspiring, no cutting edge, have one chance at goal in 45 minutes, and Brendan Rodgers knows it's not good enough. The Celtic supporters inside the ground know it's not good enough, and the callers on the line will tell us shortly it's not good enough.
We'll hear from Gabriel shortly whether there's likely to be any changes for either team ahead of the second half. 01419511025. David is a Rangers fan in Newton Mearns. David, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm just driving home now, and I was actually just thinking what I'm actually going to say, to be honest with you, because first of all, hi Andrew, Hugh and Marvin.
Hello.
Hi, mate. How you doing? I just watching that game yesterday, I'll be honest with you, right, I know we've got to give it time and all that, but the mistakes between Motherwell playing the way they played, which was similar to the back that Rangers did, there was the amount of mistakes that was happening was unbelievable. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a goal kick. You've got two guys on the 6-yard box passing it to your goalkeeper Butland, and then Butland's kicking out the park because he can't deal with it. I don't understand how this is going to get better when you've not got the players that can deal with it. This is what I don't understand. Plus, we're going to lose goals. Rangers will lose goals doing that, and we haven't got a guy up front that can put the ball in the back of net. Because I tell you what, Danilo is not the answer. Because Danilo, fair play to the guy, he tries his best. He's not the answer, and we've got a guy that was a top goal scorer in Scottish football, and he's on the bench. So we need to. I don't understand. I really don't understand it.
Yeah, I think from what Russell Martin was saying after the game yesterday, he actually had a lot of praise for Cyril Dessers. He said he came on, he did the running, he worked really hard. He said he's a player that they've had interest in bids for this summer. The valuation hasn't been matched yet, but he said he's not been unsettled. He's been one of the players that's essentially an example that he's coming on. He's not sort of fussed by any outside noise. He's just doing his job. But said essentially he's not been ready to start because he was behind everyone in pre-season. So would you expect that he would come in for Danilo on Tuesday?
Whether it's Tuesday or, near on after that, as soon as Dessers is fit to start, he will start. There's no doubt about it. As David said there, he's a top goal scorer in Scotland last season. Russell Martin's aware of, Rangers are a better team with the current squad that they do have with Dessers in it rather than them not being in it. He spoke about his mentality, like you just said there as well. So, yeah, I expect Dessers to, whether he starts on Tuesday, whether, it's the weekend he starts, he would definitely be starting games for them. And, Russell might be hoping that he can be top goal scorer again, because that's always going to help them. David's other point in terms of, Rangers trying to play from the back, and that's what I'm talking about, It's fine having that goal kick from the start or playing from the back, but if the next bit's not working, there has to be layers to what Rangers are doing to play through the third. So if the midfielders aren't dropping into the areas that they need to drop into, if people aren't running forward or rotating, then that's what Russell Martin's talking about. They are going to start to lose the ball. They are going to kick it out of play. They are going to get caught on the ball because players aren't moving into the areas where, one, the man on the ball expects them to be, and two, where Russell Martin expects them to be also.
Do you think that they're fully taking on board what Russell Martin wants them to do, how he wants them to play?
Well, surely not, because Russell Martin said that post-match, didn't he? He said there's several players out there who weren't doing the running and weren't doing the things he was asking them. So is that not a sort of obvious part of it all, of why it wasn't working? Because Russell Martin has gone into his post-match press conference and called out some players for not doing that.
Well, it was very, very disappointing. I'm watching Celtic half a game here, and I watched the Rangers game yesterday evening, and they're two bad lots right now.
Yeah, David, just to, it's obviously, is it a bit of a shock to the system because, previous managers at Rangers, it's been a criticism thrown at them that there's not been a discernible style of play. Clearly Russell Martin is bringing his own style of play. It is a radical change. It is an extreme style of play. Is it a bit of a shock to the system as a Rangers fan, just how different it is?
The system, it's obviously this is the way he wants to play, but see, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of goals lost, and as I said, we've no got, there's guys not pulling their weight. 100% Diamande, good player, but just falls away all the time, and this is one of the players, the egos, he thinks he's all that. This is what needs to happen. That boy needs to realise he's got to play the whole game, no half a game, and all was, see, I'll be honest with you, I'm not saying Barry Ferguson would have been the choice to be the manager, but I tell you what, he would have won that game yesterday. We
don't know whether Mohamed Diamande is one of the players that Russell Martin was talking about, and I think there's maybe been a bit of confusion about Russell Martin's comments, because I heard his interview with Sky, and I think some people interpreted it as he said that there were two men out there who essentially weren't doing the running and weren't doing what he asked of them, when he actually said there were too many out there. So he's calling out quite a few players, so we will see possibly on Tuesday if those players are taken out of the team. But will that hurt those players as professionals, that their ego is being called out and that they're going into self-preservation mode, or will it maybe not bother some of them if that is their character? And
well, if it doesn't bother them, that Russell Martin won't want them at the football club. He'll want it to bother them. He'll want to see a reaction from them. He'll want them to be hurt by those words. As I said, if you fall into that category, what the manager's talking about, the only people who will take offence to it are those players there. As I said, if you're doing all the running, you're doing everything the manager's asks you. Cameron comes on the pitch, Dessers comes on the pitch, and he praises them. They've done exactly what he wanted them to do. If you're a starter and you've done exactly what the manager wants you to do, you're absolutely fine with his comments. In fact, you'll be backing up his comments by saying, he's right, because he's shown us throughout the week, he's shown us throughout these 6 weeks what he wants from us, and certain players weren't doing it. So yes, the managers came out and called those players out, the ones that weren't doing the hard running, but I'm pretty sure it should have happened. Some of the players within the dressing room would have been saying to their teammates, listen, the manager's asked us to do this, we've not done it, that's on you guys. It can't be 7 or 8 of us turning up for matches, it has to be 11 of us. If we're going to compete at the top end of this league, if we're going to compete in the cup competitions, everybody has to be pulling in the right direction. And I don't mean by, being unbelievable in every single game, completing every single pass, little bits of magic, just doing the basics, the running and the application. There are two things that should never be called into question, especially as a professional footballer.
David, are there any other obvious candidates? You obviously feel Mohamed Diamande is one of the players that Russell Martin's referring to. For you, are there any other obvious candidates that you feel are the ones Russell Martin's talking about and could be pulled from the starting lineup come Tuesday?
To be honest, European game, I'm not saying we get lucky, but yeah, they had a lot of chances. Obviously, we took our chances and we got a result. Good. And I'm not saying anything about Russell Martin. Nothing all the time in the world, but see, at the end of the day, this is. I don't want it to be like last season. Guys no coming and turn up for one game and then no turning up, because that doesn't win you leagues. You win a league because you have players that play for the jersey every single week. And as Russell Martin said, when times gets hard, you need to still knuckle in and get on with it. don't feel sorry for yourself.
Is that a big thing for a manager or a coach, Marvin, that, as David mentions there and you mentioned earlier on, it's not necessarily about the quality of what the player is doing on the pitch at all times, because players will be inconsistent, they might have off games, but is it those basics and those non-negotiables that Russell Martin's talking about, that he will go into a press conference after a game and defend his players if they're trying to do the right things but failing to do so because of other circumstances? But if it is effort, if it is ego, if it is self-preservation tactics, is that when he's going to come out and have a real go at them?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Andrew, and he'll be highly frustrated. As I said, he spoke about the tactical side of it and said this is not a tactical problem. He mentioned what the problems were, and they're all down to individuals, because they're going out there with the wrong mentality, or it's becoming a little bit difficult, or the Rangers fans are becoming, a little bit agitated with the way that the game's going, and all of a sudden, like you said, players are just going into their shells and going away from it. You can't afford for that to happen when you play for Rangers Football Club, because every single team outside of Celtic domestically will be saying, go there, go to Ibrox, or when you play against Rangers, even at home, turn their fans against them, because they always travel in numbers. Or you play at Ibrox, there's always a lot of people there. Turn their fans against them, and this team will crumble. That can't be something that's labelled at that football club, because they begin to struggle game after game. So, yeah, he's totally right, I believe, in what he said. And as I said again, the players will give a reaction. It's so easy to react to that, because all he's asking you to do is to run.
What does it do for the whole sort of general atmosphere around Rangers, Hugh? Because you look at the start of summer, there was a lot of optimism, there was a takeover, a new manager, new players coming in. Yes, the performances weren't perfect against Panathinaikos, there were flaws in there, but Rangers managing to get through. It seems as if any positivity has sort of been undone across the space of 90 minutes yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of positivity around the Panathinaikos aggregate result, even though the fans knew they had witnessed two mediocre performances, even though they knew that Panathinaikos had thrown the tie away by being so awful in front of goal. At least the job was done. But yesterday created doubt, because it was a reversal to last season, where you do well against Celtic but do badly against the like of Motherwell or St Mirren. And that's why it's so important on Tuesday that Rangers react, deliver a performance and get a scoreline that the fans can react to. All of a sudden, that's become a big game for Russell Martin.
Well, thank you to David. Let's hear a bit more from Russell Martin speaking about the fans' reaction. They were angry at full time, and Russell Martin says he was on the same page as them.
I was as angry as they were, so I completely understand the supporters' reaction. We have a point that we didn't deserve, so I have to be really honest about it. And I've said from day one, I'm not going to try and play any game. I'm going to be really honest with them about certain things, well, all of it, but the players, all of it. And as much as I can be with you guys and the supporters, because they deserve that. And today, we let them down. Mentality team, I spoke about it so much since we come in, and it was a big problem.
Well, anything to add to that? 01419511025. It is into the second half at Celtic Park. Still goalless, 48.5 minutes on the clock. There was a change for St Mirren at the break. Jonah Ayunga came on, and it was Fraser Taylor that came off, which actually looks like quite an attacking move from St Mirren, because was it Roland Adowu that was up there supporting Mikael Mandron in the first half? You'd expect Roland Adowu would maybe drop back into that midfield three, and there'll be now two sort of out-and-out strikers up there.
Stephen Robinson knows Celtic are here for the taking. I'm surprised that Celtic made no changes, because it should have been done at half-time. They've started as they negotiated the first half, insipid, no cutting edge, not going anywhere. They really are having a poor afternoon, and I thought that it was time for a response at half-time. Not, if we wait any longer, St Mirren will be a goal up.
Well, it is the opening weekend of the Scottish season, so no matter who you support, no matter what your result was this weekend, we want to hear from you. We are here until 7 o'clock. You can give us a call, 01419511025.
Clyde One Super Scoreboard. Watch as well as listen. Head to @ClydeSSB on X now.
Get the new Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 and save £511.
I heard it has infinity flex window.
What is that?
It's a super immersive front display. You can stay up to date when it's closed.
Aye, and it fits in my pocket. Plus, stay connected even when you run out of data. All on the UK's best network. It's no wonder tech lovers choose EE.
Introductory offer ends 14th of August. Savings across contract. Eligibility, credit check and terms apply. Credit by EE Limited. Verify best network at ee.co.uk/claims.
Pay attention. The ferry leaves at 10 a.m. Roads are busy.
Great.
Dad, pack the boot.
Yeah.
Rosie, got your teddy?
Uh-huh.
Honey, how's the car?
Windows clean, car wax,
I meant the tyres.
Oh, sorted them at Quick Fit last week.
Brilliant.
Planning the perfect getaway this summer? Make sure your tyres are up for the job. Book today at quickfit.com or your local centre. Quick Fit. Drive away happy every time.
DJ. At PlusNet, we think switching broadband should be as easy as flicking a switch. Switch. With One Touch Switch, our team will handle all the admin, helping you wave goodbye to your old broadband provider and get set up with us instead. Switch to PlusNet today and get fast and reliable full fibre. That's A++. DJ Plus. New customers only, 24-month contract, limited availability, terms apply.
Get the new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and save £713.
What's it like? It's ultra sleek and ultra slim. What about the camera?
It's 200 megapixel.
200 megapixel. Amazing.
And with unlimited data, all on the UK's best network. It's no wonder tech lovers choose EE.
Introductory offer ends 14th of August. Savings across contract. Eligibility, credit check and terms apply. Credit by EE Limited. Verify at ee.co.uk/claims.
(0141 951 1025). This is Scottish football's league leader, Clyde One Super Scoreboard.
Marvin, Bartley and Hugh Keevins here with me, Andrew Maclean, taking your calls through to 7 o'clock. So get involved. 0141 951 1025 is a chance for St Mirren at Celtic Park, but the shot is straight into the arms of Kasper Schmeichel. 53 minutes on the clock, and it is goalless at the moment between the teams. Stephen Robinson, the happier of the managers so far?
Without doubt, unquestionably. And he's gone with a positive change at half time because he knows that there's a chance that St Mirren can win this match. Celtic are poor, uninspiring, short on players. Fergus McCann's in the crowd today. It must take him back to 1994.
It was awful decision making since St Mirren's chance there. You know, they had a 2-on-2, but they had players really running forward, and I think it's like Younger cuts inside and takes a real weak shot at Kasper Schmeichel. But out of two managers, who's the happiest? Yeah. Robinson 100% be delighted the way his team are playing, but he'll also be well aware, and so will his players, that a flick of a switch, Celtic can really turn it on, and all of a sudden you find yourself 2 goals down. So they won't rest on their laurels. They have to keep attacking Celtic and try and keep it on the back foot as much as they possibly can. Yeah, Dyson Maeda header there from a Benjamin Negron corner that goes comfortably over the bar. So as I say, it is still goalless between Celtic and St Mirren at Celtic Park. What would be the first change? I mean, I know you're going to say Yang, but anything aside from that is obvious I'd
take Yang and Adamila off. I'd put Shin Yamada and James Forrest on. And
no Johnny Kenny?
No.
I
mean, people speak of Johnny Kenny as if he was the ready-made article. He's not. The cup final finished with Johnny Kenny on the park and Yang, and it came to the same thing.
Does it matter if he's the finished article if the guy in front of him on the pitch isn't doing the job? Could he potentially still be a better option? We saw that in pre-season. There was one of the games where Adamida came off at half time, Johnny Kenny came on, scored, won a penalty as well. Proved in that one game in isolation that he was a better option on that day. Similar could happen today.
Again, Brendan Rodgers would answer your question by saying, so it's come to this then. Johnny Kenny has to be the saviour. They've paid money for Shin Yamada, and apparently he has looked promising. So I'd be thinking about Yamada. And I repeat, Engels, not just because he's the record signing. He can play. Everyone knows he can play. I think it'd be time to see what kind of inspiration he can bring to the middle of the park.
Yeah, still plenty of time for there to be action in this game. 55 minutes gone between Celtic and St Mirren, goalless at the moment. Let's go to the phones. 0141 951 1025. Willie is a Rangers fan in Cumnock. Willie, how are you?
Not bad, Andrew. How you doing, pal?
All good.
Just yesterday again. I thought the passing and stuff like that was a lot crisper. But again, they're giving the ball away too much. I don't understand why they want to play the ball back to Butland all the time, because it's putting him under pressure and he's not comfortable with the ball at his feet. There was a couple of times yesterday where the Motherwell guy nearly nicked in and got the ball. And as I say, they had 2 or 3 chances at the tail end. They could have beat us yesterday. And as Hugh said on Friday night, he just assumed that Rangers would take 3 or 4, what the majority of folk was. But Motherwell have gave us a game in the last 2 or 3 seasons, and Celtic. I mean, even when Celtic have played Motherwell, Motherwell's were up the park and scored. Celtic have only just beat them.
I'm glad you brought that up.
It's getting a case where a lot of the teams are improving. I mean, I'm watching the Celtic game because the boy next door is a Celtic man. And St Mirren are doing all right. The keepers had a few good saves, but Celtic are poor. But again, you've got to give St Mirren a bit of credit, you know.
Well, I'm glad you brought that point up, Willie.
I like that excuse from Willie. The only reason he's watching is because his next door neighbour's a Celtic fan.
His next door neighbour's like,
he wouldn't be watching otherwise.
But he's absolutely right. His summary is absolutely right. Celtic are poor. But
Come on, poor?
Yeah.
No. No. Celtic are poor. What are the rest of the league? Oh.
Almost a freak goal there for Celtic. It was a shot from range. Shamal George is actually laughing at what happened there. He can't quite believe it. Reo Hatate driving forward, got to about 30 yards out. It took a looping deflection over the head of Shamal George, hit the woodwork, hit Shamal George, and then rolled out for...
It hits the post again.
Hit the post again, did it, after it went out again. So close.
I am saying, Marvin, that Celtic are poor by Celtic standards.
Yeah.
The rest of the league can look after themselves. They are, by their own high standards, Celtic are poor. But I'm glad that Willie brought up the subject of Motherwell. Given the kind of time that Motherwell, look at that for passing incidentally, the kind of trauma, if I can put it that way, that Motherwell went through, having a manager who then left the club after 12 games. They go and get another manager that no one had ever heard of, and he's stamped his authority on the team, and they did very well against Rangers, and that's where Russell Martin is lucky. Panathinaikos should have beaten Rangers at Ibrox but were hopeless in front of goal, should have beaten Rangers in Athens but were hopeless in front of goal, and should have lost to Motherwell yesterday, but Motherwell weren't good in front of goal either. So he's been fortunate that way, but credit to Motherwell, they've adapted to their new manager, and they played exceptionally well.
Credit to Hugh Keevins for not interrupting his own monologue when he saw that Yang was being substituted off for James
There's a right
Forrest.
smile from him though.
He's gone off an hour too late.
Yeah, how pleased will Jens Bertalascu be, because he's also a new manager into the league, trying to instill his own style, a very different style to what Motherwell have played in the past. I was listening to the guys yesterday, and Ross McCormick was saying that probably the last time Motherwell played a style of football that can even be considered similar was back when Maurice Malpass was manager. It is a big change for them, and the players seem to really be buying into it, and it worked really well at times yesterday, didn't it?
Yeah, he has to be absolutely delighted with what he saw from his team. Times in pre-season, speaking to some Motherwell fans that I know, though, been really, really optimistic with what's happened. But like you said, when the business starts in terms of the first league game and Rangers roll into town, that's probably the acid test for them. And yeah, they were absolutely fantastic yesterday. Yes, they lost the ball a couple of times and they're trying to play out from the back, which is always going to happen. You watch the best teams in the world do that. But their reaction, that was the biggest difference between me, Motherwell and Rangers yesterday. When Motherwell lost the ball, they were very, very quick to get back into shape. They were very quick to get back behind the ball and then make it difficult for Rangers to then break them down. They pressed really, really hard. As Willie said there, when the ball went back to Butland, they were after him straight away. They were pressing up the pitch. So, yeah, listen, Motherwell fans, if they can continue that, effort and application, they'll be absolutely having a good season. But we all know what it's like. You play Rangers, you play against Celtic, people raise their games. It's against the other teams in the league now. Let's see how Motherwell do against them. But in terms of, the first league game, rightfully so, the manager should be delighted, so should the supporters.
To go back to Willie's point about Jack Butland isn't a goalkeeper who, is known for being the most comfortable with the ball at his feet. I think that's fair to say. In Russell Martin's system and his style of play, is it key that you have a goalkeeper that is comfortable with the ball at their feet?
Yeah, it's key that you have a goalkeeper that's comfortable with the ball at their feet. Or you have players that are moving to make him have easy passes. So when you've got, Jack Butland's being pressed at 100 miles an hour by a Motherwell forward and the players in front of him aren't moving quick enough, or at the same speed that he's being pressed, he's always going to get caught on the ball. Let's not go away from it. It's not like Jack Butland can't make passes. Of course he can make passes. The players in front of him have to move. These are the things, it's not just about, running after the ball and chasing it hard that Russell Martin's speaking about when people aren't doing the running. It's about getting in positions where you can pick the ball up. So these two things have to go hand in hand with each other, because people will look at Jack Butland and say, yes, is he the best on the ball? No, he's not, so we can press that. But if Rangers players start moving behind that and Jack Butland's got the easy 10 or 15 yard passes, all of a sudden he stops being pressed and he has more time on the ball. So yeah, it's about the players, for me, moving in front of him more than what Jack Butland can do on the ball.
Well, thank you to Willie. Let's speak to Kenny, who's a Celtic fan in Yoker. Kenny, what are you thinking?
I'm just phoning up because yesterday I was listening to Hugh as well, and I'm just wondering where all this negative it stems from yesterday when I was listening to in regards to Brendan Rodgers, where the interviews came out, got the sound bites from Brendan, and now it's, what I got from it yesterday was he's unhappy, he's wanting to leave, blah, blah, blah. What I took from the interview itself was he's very happy at Celtic. He might want some more players in the door. He might want some more say on things. Everyone does that in every job that they've got in order to make their job easier.
Was it not a bit more than that though, Kenny? That he basically said if Celtic were there just to maintain and not to drive and push forward, then he wouldn't want to be Celtic manager. Is that not a bit more than just, he might want more money to spend or might want more resources?
At the same time, but that's correct and being honest. Every manager would be the same. So the fact that he's coming out and being honest is then turned on, like, okay, he's saying this, he's directing this straight at the board. He's already spoke to the board. Do you not think he's already said this to them?
If you think there was something positive to be taken from the manager's words, then you are an excessively optimistic man. He was telling the world at large that he's fed up.
I don't agree he said that whatsoever, Hugh. I think a lot of it yesterday, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of it yesterday was journalist talk in order to incite.
No. It always comes back to this. You're one of these Celtic supporters who never allows themselves the luxury of critical analysis. You think this is some sort of a media plot, but Brendan Rodgers was quoted as saying these things, and Brendan Rodgers went on television and said these things. He did another interview on television on Wednesday where he said it's about arithmetic. I'm short of players. So he's spelling it out that he is not being back to the full, and he, for me, is letting you know that he's fed up with this annual plea for ambition. And if you took something of a positive nature out of what Brendan Rodgers had to say on Friday, then you're some man, Kenny.
Well, I do take something positive from it, but again, that's your opinion. Obviously, he's asking for players. He's not got the players yet. What happens then within a week's time if he gets the players? What happens then? Where does the chat go to then?
Well, then we all go back to Brendan Rodgers and ask him what he thinks. But Brendan's complaint in the meantime is that he doesn't feel that he's getting the players in that he needs. Now, we're looking at Kieran Tierney going off here.
I don't think he's going off. I think it's just has he been substituted off?
I think when they clap the crowd, that means they're going off.
In fact, that happened before. That happened after I said that. In fairness, you're trying to make out as if it was before.
You know what I mean? He was struggling to get back. St Mirren, sorry to interrupt you, Hugh. St Mirren were on the counter attack there, and Tierney wasn't opening up at all to come back. I just thought he just looked maybe fatigued. Hopefully, it's not an injury. The physio did come on, didn't get any sort of treatment. He's walked off and Trustees came on. So hopefully, it's just one of those things. He's kind of ran his race rather than he's picked up a niggle.
But to go back to Kenny's core point, Kenny thinks this is a media invention, and good luck to you if you are comforted by that. It's all the media and it's a plot, but it's not a view that is shared by the majority of the Celtic supporters. You can't possibly assess what Brendan Rodgers said on Friday and come out with the conclusion that Brendan's happy.
Well, thank you to Kenny. 0141 951 1025. Give us a call now and you could be up next.
Pay attention. The ferry leaves at 10 a.m. Roads are busy.
Great.
Dad, pack the boot. Suitcases, Tetris style.
Yeah.
Rosie, got your teddy? No going back this time. Honey, how's the car?
Windows clean, car wax, carpets.
I meant the tyres.
Oh, sorted them at Quick Fit last week.
Brilliant. If things go to plan, it'll be smooth sailing.
Planning the perfect getaway this summer? Make sure your tyres are up for the job. Book today at quickfit.com or your local centre. QuickFit. Drive away happy every time.
Get the new Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and save £713.
What's it like?
It's ultra sleek and ultra slim.
What about the camera?
It's 200 megapixel.
200 megapixel.
Amazing.
And with unlimited data, all on the UK's best network. It's no wonder tech lovers choose EE.
Introductory offer ends 14th of August. Savings across contract. Eligibility, credit check and terms apply. Credit by EE Limited. Verify at ee.co.uk/claims.
Has the side hustle gone all laid back? Your plan's gone way off track? Or are the orders flowing, but it's hard to keep going? It's time to bring the fire back. Instead of getting sidetracked, it's time to crack a Costa. Side hustle without the struggle. Try a can or bottle of silky smooth Costa coffee latte today. Crack a Costa.
Tackle the headlines. 0141 951 1025. Clyde One Super Scoreboard.
Marvin, Bartley and Hugh Keevins here with me, Andrew Maclean, on Clyde One Super Scoreboard. We are watching on Celtic taking on St Mirren. It looked as if Celtic had taken the lead during the break. Callum McGregor found the back of the net. The celebrations at Celtic Park continued. However, replay showed that the ball had ricocheted up off the hand or arm of Callum McGregor. I actually think it maybe hit both arms, did it, before it landed at his feet, and he found the bottom corner, so that was ruled out following a VAR check. And then moments ago, Adam Ida was in behind there but hit the post from a tight angle.
Brilliant movement from Ida as well. The ball gets floated over two St Mirren players. A fantastic first touch from him. And looked like he was going to score. Yes, he was at an angle, but probably 5 or 6 yards out. I think if he hits the target, it's in the back of the net, unless Jamal George becomes really, really lucky and he just strikes the post and the ball goes flying out. But Celtic are definitely turning it up a notch now with 18 minutes to go.
Not their day. So I think it was a bit harsh of McGregor, to be perfectly honest. But
that is just the rule these days,
Yeah.
though. That no matter, even if it wouldn't be given as a handball in normal open play, if you are the direct goal scorer and it strikes your arm, then it is going to be given as a free kick, essentially, or the goal's not going to stand.
This is the most dominant period in the match that Celtic have had. So they're really looking for that goal to capitalise, but
another chance there. Dyson made a fizzing a ball across the face of goal. Adam Ida unable to get his head on it.
I'd be taking Nygren off now, and I'd be bringing Engels on, and I still maintain Yamada should get a chance to show what he can do, because at the moment 0-0 will be the final score.
Well, Celtic fans or St Mirren fans, we want to hear your thoughts, whether it's as the game is going on or whether it's at full time. 0141 951 1025. We've had plenty of opinions on Motherwell's draw with Rangers yesterday. There is going to be a couple of changes. I didn't quite see those as I was looking at my screen.
Engels and
no, I think that's Luke McCowan.
Yeah,
Engels
and McCowan.
Oh, they both coming on.
So would that likely be Hatate and Nygren, you'd think, would come off?
Again, he's determined to stick by Ida to see if he can get a goal. Now, I know he's unfortunate there with the one that came off the post, but I'd have been tempted to try Shin Yamada, but Brendan Rodgers is the guy that picks the team, not me.
Yeah, as I said, goalless at the moment. So any thoughts on Celtic St Mirren? Keep them coming in. The same as Motherwell against Rangers. But we want to take a look at some of the other results that have happened across the weekend. It is the opening weekend of the Scottish League season. We'll get into Kilmarnock against Livingston in a bit with Marvin Bartley. But let's speak to Andrew, who is a Falkirk fan. A 2-2 draw for you today against Dundee United. How do you think that went?
Good evening, panel.
Hi.
Hi, mate.
I was at the game today. I thought Falkirk were absolutely brilliant. Considering we're playing a team who finished fourth last season, they're in Europe. I felt like Falkirk held their own really, really well. I thought our midfield absolutely dominated the game. and I don't think there's many players in that league that would get in the Falkirk midfield at the moment. What do you think your thoughts are on that?
Big praise for the Falkirk midfield from Andrew.
Yeah, I'll stick with the game first. I agree with Andrew. I think Falkirk were very, very good. I think your manager said before the game actually that there'll be high entertainment when you watch Falkirk, whether they're home or they're away. He won't change his style. They'll be expansive. They'll score goals. He said they'll concede goals, but for a neutral, they'll really, really enjoy it. I agree. Again, it was a fantastic display by you guys. Did extremely well against an extremely strong team as well. In Dundee United, dominated the ball at times. Some of your play was absolutely brilliant. Big Brian Graham, I think, played 60 minutes, and then you freshened it up from there as well. So yeah, there's a lot to be happy with from a Falkirk point of view. Dundee United, I think both managers will say, do you know what? It's one of those games that a draw is probably the fair result. If any team would have won it, it'd probably been it'd have probably been stealing it, because I think both teams were very, very good in parts of the game. So yeah. In terms of the midfield and anyone else in the league getting in that, that's just one game.
Pull yourself together, Andrew. I think it's the expression the big man was looking for there. Falkirk's priority is to stay in the division. John Maclean has been a miracle worker for them, back-to-back promotions. His priority is to simply stay in the Premiership.
He didn't say that though the other day, did he? Did he not say that they're looking up? He's not just looking for safety.
He's entitled to say what he likes, but the realistic perspective is that they are trying to stay in the division. So to start with a good point at home to Dundee United, that is fine. But I'm afraid that that Andrew's point about nobody else in the Premiership will get into Falkirk's midfield is wild.
Look, he's happy. Falkirk are in the top flight again for the first time in a long time. He's allowed to get excited.
Yeah, and we're allowed to answer him back.
Andrew, obviously, it's not as if there have been loads of changes really for the second summer running at Falkirk. Were you always quite confident, or are you quite confident at the moment that the players who did well in League One and then in the Championship have what it takes to do well in the Premiership and make a good impression?
Well, obviously there's not been a lot of signings, but because of a lot of the squads there's a lot of continuity from League One. I think we should maybe be looking at getting a couple more in. I think Maclean had said it might be loan deals, but I think the fact that the club's been together for a few years, the players know each other, I think it's only going to benefit us in the long run. I agree with Marvin about us just staying up, and I think that's exactly what we should be doing. I'm interested to see where you think Falkirk will finish this season.
I think Falkirk will finish 11th.
Is that what you put in your
I'm trying to remember.
pre-season predictions?
I'm sure that's what I put in my pre-season predictions.
I did them yesterday, Hugh.
Falkirk in 11th place, Dundee to go down.
I'm not giving any predictions on the Premiership.
But generally, how do you think they'll do in terms of being competitive against?
No, they'll definitely be competitive. As what Andrew's saying there, keeping the same players from League One to the Championship and now in the top flight. They understand exactly what's needed from them. They understand exactly how the manager wants to play. They've got really good energy within the team as well. So yeah, listen, I don't expect Falkirk to not be competitive 100%. I think they'll do well, especially at home. A lot's been made of these, Astro pitches as they're so cool, but Falkirk's is definitely a really, really good one. I don't think there'll be any complaints from any Dundee United fan or anyone who watched a game in terms of watching it on an artificial pitch. But yeah, listen, I expect them to be really strong at home and give it a good, go away from home as well. So I think they'll be fine.
Do you feel there's a good balance there, Andrew, between having the continuity from previous seasons and players that know exactly how John Maclean wants to play, but also those older experienced heads and guys that know what it takes to be Premiership players, the likes of Scott Bain starting today, Brian Graham starting today. Scott Arfield was of course there last year, but also fits into that category.
I think we've got a good balance between youth and experience at the minute. I'm a big believer that if we hadn't obviously signed Scott Arfield towards the end of last season in January, I don't think we would have won that league. I think the experience helps. Obviously Brian Graham year after year scores goals in the Championship. It's a lot to ask for him to score a lot of Premiership goals at his age, but I think with a couple more signings, I think we could have a really good season this year.
Yeah, I'll just cut shortly because Celtic St Mirren there. A decent chance for St Mirren. That was after our 3 changes Celtic made. Rio Hatate, Benjamin Nigren, Adam Ida coming off, Arna Engels, Luke McCowan and Johnny Kenny coming on. But that was the best chance that St Mirren have had, I would say, in a good while, or maybe all game so far. That
was a heart-in-mouth moment for the Celtic supporters. It seemed to be the moment that would change the game. But it's the last throw of the dice now from Brendan Rodgers, the most expensive player ever signed by Celtic. End goals on the park. Johnny Kenny, he's decided not to risk Shin Yamada, and Johnny Kenny goes on, and Luke McCowan, who always does an honest job for Celtic, but they've missed a pinch.
Yeah, a chance there. I think it was good defending, wasn't it, by Marcus Fraser? The ball being played across the box from the right. Johnny Kenny was trying to attack that in there, but Marcus Fraser in the right place. I say in the right place at the right time. He's the one that's made the movement to get in front of Johnny Kenny and manages to clear it pretty much over his own bar.
Yeah, great clearance. It's a really difficult one to clear as well, because Forrest runs down the outside, down the right wing for Celtic, puts a fantastic ball in, and it's one of those that's got own goal written all over it. So Fraser does extremely well first to get ahead of Kenny and then put it behind. But St Mirren have made 3 changes as well. They reacted to Celtic's 3 changes just to freshen up, I imagine, because those players are putting an awful lot, and it's a massive 10 minutes for them now, because if they can get out of Celtic Park with a draw, what a start to the season it will be for them also.
Well, thank you to Andrew, the Falkirk fan. He was given the Falkirk view from that 2-2 draw between Falkirk and Dundee United earlier on. Let's get the view of Aaron, who's a Dundee United fan. Well, how did you assess that game today, Aaron?
I thought that Andrew was talking, to be honest.
We'll apologise for that. For that language, but we'll apologise for that, Aaron. But I'll let you continue.
Falkirk did play the better football, I think. But there's plenty of midfielders that will get into that team.
Yeah, I think he was clear. I think apologies to anyone that heard that on the live stream. I think we managed to cut that out of the radio. Just what Aaron said. There wasn't anything too bad. Wasn't anything too bad. But always best to be on the safe side.
The Falkirk fan was just overexcited. He'd enjoy these teams come back against Dundee United, and then he said something that you couldn't possibly back up. But there's no need to get upset about it, Aaron. You get overexcited yourself from time to time.
How did you see it from a Dundee United perspective, Aaron? How did you sort of rate? Obviously, a lot of new signings in there. Yes,
a lot of fresh faces trying to get the Jim Goodman's doing all he can to get the team going, and I think Falkirk did sort of come out on top, gave it a hard game for us, but no, I don't agree with what Andrew was saying.
We've already established that Andrew just got a bit overexcited and said that no midfield player in the Premiership would get into Falkirk's midfield. Well, we understand that's nonsense, so we just forget about it and move on. Your target now is to continue the remainder of the season. You've got Rapid Vienna coming up in Europe. There's plenty for Jim Goodwin and the players to focus on, and it's Dundee United are in that position where I don't know how familiar you are, Aaron, with all of them, but you're looking at and thinking, who's he? A team made up of players signed from a variety of countries, no Scottish players. I know it can't be back to the days of Hegarty and Neri and Sturrock and Malpass, but it's unusual. And Dundee United have a bit of work to do to bed these players in.
Yeah, Aaron, is it still taking a bit of getting used to, really sort of working out Jim Goodwin's lineups and exactly how he's going to play this season, because there has been so much change?
Of course it is, and Craig Sybil playing against his former team as well, I thought he was absolutely magnificent. He really, if anything, I thought he was the best midfielder on the park.
In terms of the Dundee United squad, you'll have to do your analysis on them going forward for the season. Marvin, as part of Livingston's coaching staff, how hard is that going to be, just given the fact that they are such a different prospect than they were last season, and there's not really many names that we're used to or really know from Scottish football at all?
Yeah, luckily for us, by the time we play them, they would have played a few competitive games, so we'll be able to look back on how they've reacted together, because it's one thing looking at players individually, how they play. It's how Dundee United want to do it as a team, and there'll be a settling period for them as well. There's no doubt about it. When Jim Goodwin had this overhaul in the summer, which I think he needed, by the way, I think he's been very, very clever with what he's done. A lot of the players he has brought in, a few players that I know he's brought in from down the road, have very, very good legs about them. They have high energy. And they're going to play a slightly different way, it looks like, with the 3 at the back. So yeah, listen, Jim Goodwin's obviously done his homework on these players. He's trying to bed them all in together. They're trying to handle Europe and then playing games on a Sunday, but I think Dundee United will be just fine. I actually think they'll be better this season to watch, definitely, than they were last season. I think they've done some really, really good stuff in the transfer market.
Well, thank you to Aaron and Andrew giving us the view from Falkirk against Dundee United. That was a 2-2 draw earlier on. It is still 0-0 between Celtic and St Mirren at Celtic Park. Let's turn our attentions to another 2-2 draw. Kilmarnock against Livingston yesterday. Your first league match back involved, Marvin, of course, has been the Premier Sports Cup group stages. How do you assess the 90 minutes yesterday?
I actually thought we played extremely well in the first half, which is strange to say. We had a crazy 5 or 10 minutes, conceded 2 goals back to back, really. And then it was, and it's always going to be difficult when you're 2-0 down. But, the manager said to them at half time what he expected in the second half. We spoke about getting the next goal and how vital that would be. We also went for a change of shape, playing with 2 strikers. Zach Rudden came on as well, went to a 3-5-2 and matched up. And, to be fair to the players, their reaction in the second half was absolutely fantastic. They never let their heads drop. They were a side that you could see that were promoted last season through the playoffs. There's a real buoyance about the group, although we've added a lot of new players to it. And then coming out of there with a 2-2 draw, when probably looking at it thinking we could have actually won that game, which is strange to say after being 2-0 down at half time. We'll take the point obviously and move on to Falkirk next week. But yeah, as I said, there's a lot of positives. It was just probably that 5 or 10 minutes when we conceded 2 goals. We can't afford one mistake to come into 2 mistakes and find yourself 2-0 down in the top flight. For people that their teams came up against Livingston in the Premiership previously before they get relegated and haven't watched them in the Championship at all, do you think there will be a shock to some people at the style of play? Because it's noticeably different. I think it was 64-65% possession that you guys had yesterday against Kilmarnock. David Martindale has made a concerted effort to change the style. Just how different is it for you as someone that was there when Livingston were a more direct, more physical team in the Premiership? You said I wasn't a good footballer, so it had to be long balls. No, not at all. No, but as part of the coaching staff as well that you were there, the style has changed. How different is that now from when you were there previously? Yeah, it's very different. As you said there, the manager made a decision once the club were relegated that he wanted to change the style of play. He always thought about coming back to the top flight. How could we come back up and stay up ultimately, and what gives us the best chance of doing so. So yeah, it is different. It's a different way of coaching. It's a different way of analysing games. Our own games I'm talking about. It's different information being given to the players. But ultimately, Livingston are built on hard work. So whether we're playing a little bit more direct or whether we're keeping the ball or whatever formation we're playing, players have to, work hard. Oh, Celtic have just scored.
Yeah, I'll interrupt you there because it is 87 minutes on the clock and one of Celtic's substitutions has worked. It's Luke McCowan who goes and wheels away in celebration. Celtic have the lead against St Mirren. It's late in the game. They've left it late, but Luke McCowan is the man with a goal and Celtic have a 1-0 lead.
Long time coming, but it wouldn't bother Luke McCowan, that's for sure. Celtic have been knocking on the door, and eventually the door opened for them. There's no way. It's taken a deflection. It's slightly fortuitous, but if Celtic get out of here with a 1-0 win, it won't bother them because they've had a fairly poor afternoon, not convincing at all. But Luke McCowan has probably won them the game. They now have to be resolute at the other end of the park.
Yeah, Celtic were quite patient there at the edge of the box. It can get to that time, 87 minutes on the clock, where players maybe start to rush things or start to shoot when they shouldn't, but they did wait for the right opportunity there to get the shot away.
Yeah, definitely they did. And from St Mirren's point of view, they probably wanted the ball to continue going wide, and I think one of their midfielders jumps too early, and Luke McCowan is a good footballer that he is. He realises that, comes back inside on his left foot and gets his shot away. Yes, it's a deflection, but the ball ends up in the back of the net, which is the most important thing. And as Hugh said there, Celtic have really been knocking on the door. The game became a little bit more stretched. St Mirren, when they were going to the other end, weren't doing well enough in front of goal. And Celtic have now punished them. But, listen, Celtic have worn them down. That's ultimately what's happened in this game. And now St Mirren have got 5 minutes or so, probably with added time, to try and get themselves back into it.
Yeah, not long to go at Celtic Park. We are spinning a few plates here. Just to go back to the conversation we were having about, Livingston and the change of style, the change of pitch as well. I think Livingston were basically told that the pitch had to be ripped up. A new artificial surface was put down. I heard David Martindale speaking very openly that he previously was like, well, what's all the fuss about? The pitch is fine. And now that the new pitch has been laid down, he said, all right, okay, hands up. It was nowhere near the required standard.
Yeah, well, listen, it was of the required standard because the league were passing it. But in terms of, people saying that the pitch wasn't good to watch on or it didn't play very well, I think he's noticed a massive difference now with the new pitch. obviously me working in the media last year and being asked about it, I was very open and honest about it. I thought Kilmarnock's and Livingston's were probably two pitches that, you watch on TV and they don't look great at all. You see the Falkirk game on TV today and the pitch plays well and the pitch looks good and ours is exactly the same. Only ours is a year or two newer. I'm not sure how long Falkirk had theirs in for. But, listen, it makes a huge difference. And like you said, the style of play is a lot easier to play on the pitch that we have now as well than the pitch that we had before. Hopefully people are watching it and as neutrals they can watch a good game of football on it. And as I said, a good grass pitch or a good Astro, definitely a good grass pitch, but there's been some poor grass pitches as well that have been okay. So hopefully a poor grass pitch or a good Astro, I'm taking our pitch all day long, as I said, because it plays really, really well. I don't think there'll be any complaints about the pitch this season.
There was a decision in the match, George Stanger pulling back Robbie Muirhead, went to VAR. It was quite a long wait for the VAR to get involved, and then eventually referee goes to the screen, red card for George Stanger, penalty for Livingston. Stuart Kettlewell spoke after the game. He said he felt it was soft. How did you view it?
No, I thought it was a penalty. There's definitely a pull on Robbie Muirhead's shirt. He pulls him off balance. You see his shirt clearly being tugged. I think, Stuart Kettlewell was maybe unhappy about the incident that happened just before it, which I thought was a more natural coming together. I didn't think that was ever going to be given as a foul, but, luckily we have a ability to watch the replays instantly on the screen, and as soon as I saw it, I said to the gaffer, that's going to be a penalty kick, because he does pull away at him, and then you're not trying to play the ball, so it's always going to be a red card. And I think a few Kilmarnock fans said that was a change in the game. I thought we were on top before that sending off, and I think we just asserted our dominance after that, and obviously we scored the penalty, and then we scored late goal through Scott Pittman as well.
Is there any point in asking Livingston's coach whether Livingston were due the penalty that they were given?
Well, he's got right of reply after Stuart Kettlewell was asked it. What's Stuart Kettlewell going to say? He's probably only going to say that it was soft, isn't he? So you need to get both views right. It is into injury time at Celtic Park. We will get full time from Gabriel next.
Number one for football in Glasgow and the West. 0141 951 1025. Clyde 1 Super Scoreboard.
Into the final seconds at Celtic Park. Is Celtic 1, St Mirren 0. There was a chance for Celtic to make it 2-0, but it was a brilliant recovery tackle by Tunmise Sobowale on Daisen Maeda, who looked clean through. Not many people catch Daisen Maeda, but it was a brilliant recovery run and tackle.
We also had the uncharacteristic side of Celtic holding the ball at the corner flag, holding on for dear life, trying to get through this 5 minutes of added time. They look as if they might just have done it, but as the ball goes back to Kasper Schmeichel, there can't be any time left now.
Yeah, I think there was a slight delay for a potential VAR check that came to nothing, but Kasper Schmeichel now wasting time sort of dribbling towards his own byline, but I think that is full time at Celtic Park. Brendan Rodgers shake hands with his own coaching staff, and let's go to Gabriel, who's got the story from Celtic Park.
Full time and it's Celtic 1, St Mirren 0. Brendan Rodgers' side left it late to break the stalemate as substitute Luke McCarron's deflected strike in the 87th minute handed them all 3 points. The defending champions will know they were far from their best and will have to improve, but they'll be delighted to pick up 3 points that moves them 2 ahead of Rangers on the opening weekend. And it's a tough one to take for the visitors. St Mirren so solid throughout the entire game that they head home empty-handed. The best chance of the first half came when Benjamin Newgram was denied from close range after an impressive tip onto the bar by Shamar George in the St Mirren goal. After the insult, Adam Eder crashed the ball against the post following a chest and volley. Captain Callum McGregor thought he'd broken the deadlock midway through the second half, but the goal was ruled out through VAR due to a handball. And there were other chances here and there, Andrew. James Forrest's introduction certainly made a difference, but for all the corners and possession in the final third, it didn't look like it was going to be Celtic's day until McCowan struck. He took a touch in the box, swept it into the near post with his left foot. A little nick left the unsighted George with no chance. There was an injury concern for the returning Kieran Tierney as well. He impressed on his second debut but came off after signalling to the bench. St Mirren did threaten once or twice on the break, but it was more about their brilliant defensive display today. Stephen Robinson had plenty to build on for the remainder of the campaign, but Celtic got the job done in the end. They will not care about the performance in the long run. Their title defence is up and running with 3 points on Flag Day. Full time here, it's Celtic 1, St Mirren 0.
3 points for Celtic. A goal from Luke McCowan 87 minutes into the game means that Brendan Rodgers' side start the Premiership campaign with all 3 points. Certainly wasn't a vintage Celtic display, but the main thing on the opening day of the season is to get all 3 points.
Well, when Rangers dropped 2 points on Saturday evening, it was imperative from the Celtic fans' point of view that they picked up a home win. Now, they have struggled to get that home win. They did have dominant periods in the game, but St Mirren were a constant threat to them. McGregor had the ball in the net, I think, harshly, but I do accept that in 2025 that's the way it is. I thought McGregor was harshly dealt with, but the goal was overruled by VAR, and they had to hang on, and eventually the dam broke, and Luke McCowan got a deflected goal to give Celtic that win. But for me, the debate reopens this evening on Kieran Tierney and his general state of fitness. It's his first game back since leaving Arsenal, and he hasn't lasted the 90 minutes.
Yeah, they did show him
the debate.
Yeah, they did show him on the screen there. I mean, he's on the screen again now. I don't know whether that was maybe Luke McCowan just asking him there whether he's all right, and there was a nod, but certainly he was all smiles. He's shaking hands. He doesn't look too concerned, but would there be a concern that he doesn't last the 90 minutes, that he, Gabriel saying that he signalled to the bench and had to come off?
Yeah, well, ultimately, I imagine that Brendan Rodgers and the physio department have said to him, if you feel anything in these early games, just let us know. We take no risks. And the positive from Celtic's point of view is that the physio did come onto the pitch, didn't treat him at all. He wasn't given any ice when he then went and sat on the bench. So, as I said, hopefully from his point of view, it's a little bit of fatigue rather than any sort of injury or a niggle. But yeah, the most important thing for Celtic today was winning that game of football, and they've managed to do so. Were they at their best? No. But good teams and great teams, when you're not playing at your best, you still win games of football. Come the end of the season, Celtic are to win the league by 3 points. This could be a vital 3 points for them. And St Mirren, by the way, give them massive praise. They've come through the League Cup campaign as well. So they're probably more up to speed than Celtic are in terms of playing competitive games. This is Celtic's first competitive game of the season. They've got the win. Is there a lot of things for them to work on? Yes. Do they need to be better? 100%. But, you look at the league table tonight and they've got 3 points.
Do they need more players? Yes.
Alec is a Celtic fan in Irvine. Alec, how do you assess what you saw from Celtic today?
Delighted that we got the win at the end of the day, but I'll tell you what, it was a struggle. I think the Callum McGregor goal should have been given, but it wasn't, and you've just got to deal with that and move on. My biggest concern is about the manager. I think the manager's already gave up with the board. There's talk about Russell Martin throwing his players under the bus. I think the Celtic board have done the exact same with the manager after almost begging to bring him back. I think it's a disgrace that they're now not supporting him. Champions League game coming up, and we should have had players in by now to give the manager the best chance to blend these players together, strengthen the team and move on. And I know a lot of people are saying about the money we spent last year. It doesn't matter. If you want to play with the best teams in the world, you've got to do the same to try and compete with them and give the manager a chance. That's my feelings on it.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, Alec, that Brendan Rodgers, I go back to the press conference at Lennoxtown that he did for Sky Television, in which he said, it's about arithmetic. His players down and he needs replacements in. And then 2 days later, he went the whole hog and said that he was trying to tell everyone behind the scenes that he needed players in, but perhaps he wasn't telling them well enough. And he made various other remarks about recruitment. Brendan Rodgers knows that this Celtic side is well short, and anyone who watched that game knows this Celtic squad is well short, particularly up front. And the Champions League draw is tomorrow, and it's a vital double header, and Celtic are way under strength with regard to that Champions League match, and struggled at home today to put away St Mirren. Got there in the end fortuitously, but no one can look at that and think Celtic are in good nick.
We are in this awkward period where Celtic may well go on to spend a lot of money. They may bring in quality players, and I think I heard Gordon say it yesterday that people would look back and think, what was all the fuss about earlier on in the summer. But Alex's point that he makes of Celtic could have got players in earlier to try and get them in for pre-season, get them to click in for that Champions League qualifier. They may still get players in for the Champions League qualifier, but it wouldn't be giving them too much time, would it, to really integrate themselves into Brendan Rodgers' style and Celtic's culture?
No, it really wouldn't. And I said earlier on the show that there might be targets out there that want Champions League football, and that's what Celtic are waiting for. So if the window was to close and Celtic were in the same kind of position they are now at the close of the window, I'd 100% be agreeing with Alex's point. Probably the worrying thing is that the managers came out and said what he has said, because that means that things aren't moving as quickly behind the scenes as he wants them to move. And I'm sitting here saying there might be players that, if they are in the Champions League, that definitely want to come. He's also obviously got players that he wants to sign now, and they'll come to Celtic regardless of what European competition they are in. They have to back the manager. They need to move forward with it.
And also in terms of the manager's future, this becomes an unwanted distraction for the whole of the season now, because all that anyone speaks about, once we get the window out of the way, is Brendan staying? Is Brendan going? For me, what he said on Friday said to me, that's it, I'm done here.
It still is ambiguous though, isn't it? He still is going to get asked, I would reckon, routinely about his future, whether more talks have taken place. Could that potentially be a distraction to the season at all if Brendan Rodgers is going to get asked about his future every few weeks?
Look at the examples of, for example, Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, when he announced early on that this would be his last season, and the season unravelled thereafter. I remember Walter Smith, the late great Walter, years ago, when he said at the beginning of the season that he was going, this would be his last season, and Rangers unravelled in front of your eyes.
Is that not different though? Because in those two cases, the fans, the team, the players, they all got clarity that the manager was leaving, whereas the situation with Brendan Rodgers is that there is no clarity. So if Brendan Rodgers was to come out now and say, this is my final season, there's then potential for those examples to come in, and whether it unravels or not is a different story. But the uncertainty, is Brendan Rodgers going to come out at this stage and say 100% yes I'm staying, or 100% yes I'm leaving?
Well, he gave the guarantee that he would see out every day of his 3-year agreement, and as I said earlier, he will not stain his own legacy by doing anything other than that. But today brings Super Scoreboard to this station 7 days a week, and we will now spend 7 days a week discussing Brendan Rodgers.
Well, thank you to Alec in Irvine. Let's speak to Alec in Renfrew, who is also a Celtic fan. How are you, Alec?
Thanks for taking my call, panel.
No problem.
Hugh, I missed your predictions for who you think would win the league this year, Hugh.
Celtic.
Oh no.
Oh, ye of little faith.
The Keevins kiss of death.
I've heard it now. Anyway, today's game, I don't think there's any need for panic. We hit the bar, we hit the post twice. Either should have buried the net. We obviously, I agree with you, we do need strengthening, but I don't think there's anything to worry about. Hugh, I think looking at Brendan Rodgers' body language, he seems quite calm and relaxed. He's no panicking. If at the end of the 4 weeks we've not got the players,
I think we'll try and clear up Alex's line. It is a bit dodgy there, but you can make out the point he was trying to make.
No one's mentioning panic at all. Panic is not an option here, but today highlighted the deficiencies in Celtic's squad. They started with, they're still passing off Yang. Yang still gets a start here because Brendan Rodgers has no alternative. Ida, who promised 30 goals this season, is still 30 short of 30. And for me, Celtic need a better striker than Adam Ida.
Does that make it hard though, Hugh? Brendan Rodgers or Celtic have spent £9 million or £9.5 million on Ida last summer.
Yeah.
Now, if you're sitting on a board and the manager comes to you and says, I want to sign this other striker for £12 million, and you're saying, well, you spent £9 million last summer, and yes, Kyogo's gone in that time, but surely this guy was brought into the football club in order to step up if Kyogo was to go, or definitely challenge him if Kyogo was still at the football club.
He only cost £9 million because Celtic dithered and waited till the last day of the transfer window. If they had bought him earlier on, they'd have got him at a more reasonable price. But by that time, the Celtic fans were in torment, and they paid a wildly exaggerated fee for a player who isn't remotely close to being worth £9 million.
There's also, Celtic look as if they've got a starting midfielder in Benjamin Negron. Certainly the way that Celtic have lined up in pre-season and on the opening day of the season, and they managed to get him for a very reduced fee because he was in the final 6 months of his contract. So it's no guarantee that if Celtic want a starting striker that it's going to go out and cost that amount of money. But is it different when it comes to strikers just because they are the guys that put the ball in the back of the net? Do they tend to just cost more money to get someone that's never going to guarantee you big numbers but will give you the best chance of doing so?
Yeah, they're always going to cost you a lot of money, like you said, centre forwards, because they're the most valued people on the pitch. They put the ball in the back of the net, which ultimately makes you win games or helps you win games anyway. So yeah, they'll definitely, for me, they'll be looking for a striker. It's who they bring in and how much they ends up costing them. In the forward areas, I agree with you. They need to strengthen 100%. I think they need another fullback as well, another left back, to help Kieran Tierney in terms of being in there. We saw Liam Scales going to left back today, but I think in the centre of the park they've got more than enough players. So unless they were to lose one of those midfielders, I don't think they'll be bringing in another centre midfielder. You've got 3 good midfielders on the bench. Bernardo doesn't even get on the pitch today. It doesn't end up even getting stripped, and he cost £3 or £4 million for them as well. So yeah, listen, are they short of players? 100%. I think it's a totally different argument though now to it would be if the window closes in August and they don't bring in the reinforcements.
Is Celtic's number 9 not in the building for you then at the moment, Alec? When you look at Adam Ida, Johnny Kenny, Dyson Maeda played through the middle towards for the second half of last season and won the Player of the Year award. Do you feel it's not going to be any of those players? Do you think Celtic have to go out and sign a new number 9?
Adam Ida needs replaced. John Kenny's no the answer. Obviously we've got the Japanese boy Yamada. Give him a shot, but we need to go for somebody. I mean, at the end of the day, Celtics get scouts all over the world, I would imagine. So they must have a rise in somebody. If Brendan Rodgers goes to the board and says, I want X, Y, Z, and they don't give him it, well, that's the board's fault. Brendan Rodgers will walk at the end of the season. But I don't think there's anything to worry about. I mean, today we hit the post twice, we hit the bar. Some young keeper had 2 great saves.
Alec, you're playing St Mirren. With the greatest respect, you're playing St Mirren at Celtic Park on the day you unfurl the league flag. It has to be of higher quality than we saw today. And
I agree with you, Hugh, it's going to be higher quality, but you're old enough and wise enough to say myself, I've been to hundreds of these flag day openings that have won the league, and you never ever really got a great game. It's always very, very tight.
Yeah, but you're overlooking, you're not allowing yourself to examine this properly. Up front, they are desperately short.
Totally agree with you. But at the end of the day, we've got 4 weeks to go. As Big Marv says, we've got 4 weeks to go. There'll be somebody coming in. There'll be another left back, and there'll be a centre forward coming in. And by the way, Hugh, what did you think of Ngren today, Nigel?
Okay, but not, outstanding, not superlative. It was okay.
He's better than Engels.
Well, that remains to be seen. I thought Engels worked hard when he came on, both in a forward-going sense and doing his defensive shift when necessary. But again, good luck to Benjamin Negron. But he was a £2.5 million player. Celtic have the money, and I'm not talking about bringing in £30 million players, but they have the money to get better than they have, and they have the money to get better than Yang and Adam Ida up front.
Would you bring in a wide man then, Alec, or would you bring in a centre forward? Would you be happy with Maeda going back to the middle as a number 9 and potentially bring in another wide player?
I wouldn't have Maeda out in the wing. I mean, he had a chance to bury it at the end of the day, and he didn't. He obviously, the Smyrn player, came back and cleared it. I would throw the cat in amongst the pigeons and go for Dessers.
It's great radio, but it's absolutely impossible for a very, very simple reason, Alec. You live in the west of Scotland, you know the west of Scotland. No person, no matter their nationality, can move from Rangers to Celtic or Celtic to Rangers and not have their life destroyed. Therefore, it will never ever happen.
Well, the last person that done it lives in California, Hugh. I don't think his life's been destroyed, but I get your point.
Well, thank you to Alec. Still time to get your calls in before 7 o'clock. 0141.
Mo Johnson didn't leave Celtic for Rangers, incidentally.
That's true.
So we'll just clear that one up.
0141 951 1025. Final chance to get your calls in before 7 o'clock. And while you do that, let me tell you about this.
Clyde 1.
The cash total has gone up again on Make Me a Winner. If you want to transform your summer beyond all recognition, get your entry in now for the chance to win a huge £546,000. To get 100 entries into the draw, text BANK to 61025. Text are £10 plus your standard network rate. Or for one entry, text YES to 61025. Text are £250 plus your standard network rate. Or you can call 03434 269 340. Calls are also charged at the standard network rate. It's over 18s only. Online entry and all the rules for this Rail Network competition are on our website. Lines close at 5 o'clock on Friday when Will Best will make the call. If you answer your phone, the £546,000 will be yours, and it's paid into your bank account straight after the call. It's a guaranteed winner as well, so someone will win the lot. So for your chance, go to makemeawinner.co.uk. Good luck.
You are the voice of Scottish football. Call 0141 951 1025. Clyde 1 Super Scoreboard.
Into the final part of the first new Super Scoreboard Sunday, 4 until 7. We will be here every week to give you the first comprehensive review of the weekend's action. Of course, we also had Celtic against St Mirren live at the same time as well. Finished in a 1-0 win for Celtic. Luke McCowan taking until the 87th minute to give Celtic the lead, but they kick off their Premiership campaign with all 3 points. Paul is a Celtic fan. Up next, Paul, how did you view the game? What did you take away from it?
Yeah, I thought it was a good day. I was a bit wasn't really looking forward to the game. Not a lot of new signings. Looked forward to seeing Tierney back, who just looked class until he went off. But my main point is really about the whole vilification of Adam Ida here. It's just another narrative from Hugh. I mean, I had my Nicholas Kuhn moment with him 18 months ago, and I'm predicting that we'll do the same again. Adam Ida has scored vital goals for Celtic, 2 in the Champions League, Scottish Cup winners, double penalties at Hibs. He had no pre-season last year, back and forth with Norwich. And, he was an inch off a header today to score. He brings the ball down the box, hits the post. It's just one of these things. If he's a European player or he's not get, and I'm not saying they didn't pay too much money for him, but they maybe paid a couple of million more than what he should have. And the whole, just getting into the car after the game and to hear Hugh on one of his 40th bandwagon in 47 years, it's just a joke.
57.
Sorry, Hugh. I was knocking the sum off for tack.
We must have accuracy. 57.
I'm not old enough to remember all of them, so there you go.
Well, that's your tough luck. But my point is that Celtic need better than Adam Ida. It's as simple as that. We can argue all day about the fee. I don't think you're saying you'd have paid 7 million but not 9. You're not worth 7 either. But Celtic need better than Adam Ida. That's my, by all means he can come on and off the bench, but as a first pick, an automatic pick, Celtic need better than Adam Ida.
He still got 20 goals across the course of last season, and for the most part wasn't Celtic's starting striker. Is that a good return for someone that isn't the starting number 9 week in, week out?
It's a fantastic return, to hit 20 goals whether you're a starter or not. And like I said, it's even harder for him because he wasn't the main number 9 at Celtic. I think it offers a different pressure now, though, when you are the main number 9. I think when you are coming off the bench, like we saw with St Mirren today, they began to tire. You're getting the last 30 minutes against teams when you're totally dominating them. I think it's easier to come off the bench and probably less pressure on you. But there's big pressure on Adam Ida at this moment in time because he is a starting striker that Brendan Rodgers is choosing. So, listen, we'll see how he does go. I still expect Celtic to bring in an attacking player. The more I think about it, I think Maeda will be moved to that number 9 position, as we saw him play a lot before, and I think they'll bring in another winger because I think it's easier to do so, Andrew. I think it will cost you less money. I think it's easier to get more money for your buck as well if you get a winger in rather than a centre forward. So
you're saying you would revert to Maeda through the middle?
I will go Maeda through the middle. I don't think you're going to get a striker of his quality. I know, listen, he missed a chance today and he does miss chances, but he's fantastic as a number 9 for me. His pressing, we see it in Europe, I think domestically as well. He offers that pace in behind. I would be you know, if they can only bring in one, and if I was at Celtic, I'd be more bringing in a winger to move my area across and trying to find that, you know, that number 9.
I think for a club that has the money that Celtic have, and as I say, I'm well aware we're in Scotland and we can't shop in the market where other bigger countries shop, but you know, if that's the solution, move a wide man.
But he's the centre forward for Japan, isn't he?
He was Player of the Year last year in Scotland, and most of that came in the second half of the season when he was playing through the middle.
Well, if you do
when
that,
Kyogo was sold and Daizen Maeda, we had a lot of Celtic fans during the summer as well that I think on the phones sort of assumed he shifted back out on
if you do that,
to the left side, but he was Player of the Year last year playing through the middle.
If you do that through the middle thing with him, you need 2 wingers then. You need 2 men brought in for the wide positions, because Maeda is the only one.
Well, then if you don't do that, you still need a striker and a wide man anyway, so you're not bringing in 2 players anyway.
Anyway, my point regarding Adamida...
Just move on because it doesn't suit your narrative. Is that the...
My point is that Celtic need better than Adamida and have the wherewithal to go and get themselves someone better than Adamida.
It's not the fee though for me, for Celtic. It's not going out there, and they can spend 15 million on 2 players 100%, but when you bring in a player on £15 million, the wage expectancy from them is really, really high. And I think that will be the problem with Celtic. It's not paying the fee. They have a wage structure they have to, you know, fit into. These players have to fit into. The more you pay in transfer fees, the more wages you have to pay them. And I think that's where, you know, it could get a little bit sticky for Celtic if you're paying too much for players.
Paul, could you see Daizen Maeda playing through the middle this season at all? Or for you, is it Adamida? Is it someone new coming in?
I mean, again, that was my point. I mean, I don't think Adamida was ever going to be Celtic's first choice striker anyway, so he was brought in as backup to...
For £9 million, though? No.
Yeah, even that I think is maybe a player that was going to be a young player that was going to develop, and, you know, as you say, 20 goals last season. Can I make another point about Nygren versus...
Very quickly,
Engels?
yes.
Nygren will never be, first look, he'll never be the player that Aaron Engels is going to be, and here's another one, that Engels came on and was imperious in the way that he picks passes and hits passes that very few players in the Scottish League can do. And again, this is another...
Why do you think he wasn't selected ahead of Benjamin Nygren today?
Maybe a bit of psychology. Maybe Brendan Rodgers, maybe not up to speed. He's a young boy. I don't know what his pre-seasons will be like. But make no mistake, Engels will play in the Champions League games and he'll play in the bigger games, and he'll be a star for Celtic until he's moved on for a lot of money. So, you know, the boy Nygren looked, as Hugh said, I'm agreeing with for once, looked okay, quite tidy, but he's not got what Engels has got in his locker. And I was actually quite happy to see him get booked for a meaty challenge, given that he's applied himself. And I don't think anyone knows the pressure, especially nowadays with social media, that young players coming to Celtic or Rangers are under. And I think these 2 lads deserve a wee bit of slack. Certainly, the edification for Hugh is well. Let's just see his first game of the season. Unlucky. I just want to ask Marvin quickly, as a manager, would you have taken Ida off to give Johnny Kenny a 10-minute slot? I thought psychologically he should have kept him on to try and get a goal.
Yeah, I would have taken him off. I just think he needs to freshen up at the top end. But clearly the show don't care about what I think, so they put the music on to end it. But yeah, no, I agree. I would have made the change of Ida. I would have.
It's like the Oscars when your speech is too long. They're trying to get you off the stage. Well, thank you to Paul. Thank you to Marvin, Bartley and Hugh Keevins for joining me in the studio. Thank you for tuning in for the first of many Super Scoreboard Sundays to come. We'll be here every Sunday 4 until 7, giving you the first comprehensive review of the weekend of action. It's been a lively one so far, and I'm sure it's going to be another lively week of Scottish football action to come. We're back tomorrow night from 6 o'clock. Gordon Duncan will be in the studio with Andy Halliday and Roger Hanna. Remember, you can catch up on the show. You can listen back to wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch back on the live stream as well, as we do on these Sunday shows. But stay right there, because it is the Sunday Night Anthems with Gary Spence up next.
Get the new Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 and save £511.
I heard it has infinity flex window.
What is that?
It's a super immersive front display. You can stay up to date when it's closed.
Aye, and it fits in my pocket.
Plus, stay connected even when you run out of data. All on the UK's best network. It's no wonder tech lovers choose EE.
Introductory offer ends 14th of August. Savings across contract. Eligibility, credit check and terms apply. Credit by EE Limited. Verified best network at ee.co.uk/claims.
DJ! At PlusNet, we think switching broadband should be as easy as flicking a switch. Switch! With one touch switch, our team will handle all the admin, helping you wave goodbye to your old broadband provider and get set up with us instead. Switch to PlusNet today and get fast and reliable full fibre. That's A++. DJ! Plus. New customers only, 24-month contract, limited availability, terms apply.